very quiet.
Let's roll, please. Rolling.
Ready and action.
Walt Disney had a saying, which is that he doesn't make movies for children. He makes movies for the child in all of us. Largely, I think as a filmmaker, that's all you can do, is you can make a film for your own sensibilities. Otherwise, you're second guessing. You're trying to create something that's somebody else's movie, and it's impossible. You're always chasing your tail. I think a lot of movies don't really hit their target because there wasn't a single vision. There wasn't a single idea for the movie.
And cut it.
This was such a big movie. It was very big news when we got the rights, and it was a very hot commodity in Hollywood at that time. So our phones were ringing off the hook for a couple months there. A number of incredibly talented and wonderful directors expressed interest. We certainly met with a number of them. And then one day I got a call from an agent who said, you know who you should consider for this? You should consider my new client, Andrew Adamson. He directed Shrek.
We met Andrew for the first time at a cafe in Burbank. And he had literally, it was the night before, was the Academy Awards. And after one meeting with Andrew, Perry and I were both in agreement that this was the right person.
After doing Shrek, I didn't want to do anything like this. I really wanted to do a small character-based movie. It was just a book that was so dear to me. It was a story that was so dear to me. I couldn't handle the idea of not doing it, letting someone else do it, and then maybe it wouldn't turn out how I liked and I could only hold myself responsible. So when the studio came to me with this property, it was impossible for me to turn down. I think it is better sitting this way.
And I had a couple of people say along the way, well, you know, he did really well with the Shrek movies, but how's he going to do with live action?
His background is visual effects, but he does have a wonderful sense of style and a wonderful sense of space, textures.
As he looks up this way, and then all of a sudden she's there.
Yeah. You can see it in the way he puts his films together. So he's where he should be. He should be a director. Because he does span all the different qualities you need to put something together, technically, visually, and which I think he's the best of at story-wise.
You waited all night the night before, then there's a big earthquake just as you're about to go, and you turn around and the table's broken and something's happened. And action.
I love the fact that he, for his first live action, should make a film of this size. But it was great because it meant that we were making a film of this size with someone who had a beginner's mind, who was making his first feature, in a way, even though he must be the most experienced first feature film director ever.
The first thing I did after meeting with Walden, and actually before meeting with the estate, was I sat down and I wrote out all my memories from reading the book, before actually even rereading it. I just really wanted, I decided straight away that I really wanted to capture what it was that I loved as a child. So I kind of wrote down everything I could remember.
A couple days later, I get this call from him. He said, I actually took the time over the weekend to type out some thoughts that I have on the movie. I'd love to send them your way. Sure, great, go ahead, send them. I get a 20-page comprehensive it was a set of director's notes, and it told you everything he wanted to do, from character work, from the color palettes of the movie, from the CGI effects he wanted to do, how he wanted to render the battle, the music. He knew, he had a vision that was just perfect.
And so basically I decided, okay, if they're up for it, I don't so much want to make the book, which is the first of the Chronicles, but I want to make my memory of the book, which is far more expansive. Because C.S. Lewis wrote in a way that was very minimalist. Unlike Tolkien, who spelled everything out and was very specific, C.S. Lewis painted a picture and left a lot to your imagination.
There's very little description of many characters, of the battle, which doesn't even exist in the book. The aftermath does.
In the book, it's a page and a half in retrospect. It's Peter basically telling Aslan what happened, but I remembered it as a child as this incredible battle with minotaurs against centaurs, against fauns and satyrs. It's really an incredible battle, and it's very different from anything we've seen before.
It's a child's imagination that brings those books to life. So that was where Andrew was coming from.
There's a line in the beginning of the book that just says it was during the bombing raids on London, and it's pretty much, that's how much detail you get about the fact that they're in the war.
Andrew, good to see you, brother. Good to see you too.
And talking with Doug Gresham, who's C.S. Lewis' stepson, he was interested in, and I was interested in expanding that idea. And we kind of cooked up this idea of really starting to see the action of World War II to really establish the setting. And I wanted to really set up the fact that these were real children in a real world in real jeopardy.
I instantly could picture that movie that took the very simple book opening, it was wartime and children were sent away to the countryside, and built that up into this, bombing of London sequence.
So that the audience walks in expecting to see a drama involving 4 children shipped off to the country, and instead they're suddenly immersed in this action sequence. And you get to meet the children in this situation.
It's the same journey it was in the book, but it just seems so much more epic when kind of put in movie terms.
I wanted to make a story about a family fragmented and disenfranchised in World War II that's ultimately empowered, and through their unity, empowered to solve this problem and defeat this witch and solve the war in Narnia.
And so what he's doing is marrying the book, the wonderful C.S. Lewis book, with the imagination that he brought to reading it when he was a 9-year-old boy. And he described to me the movie that he wanted to make, and I said, I want to see that movie.
To me, Narnia was always a real place. Actually, when I was initially interviewing production designers, a lot of people were drawing those parallels to stories like Wizard of Oz, where these were places where the children had created these worlds in their heads as a place they could escape to. I never saw it that way when I read it as a child. I always saw that they stepped through the wardrobe.
Impossible.
And they ended up in Narnia, and Narnia was a real coexistent world.
I came to this film from Peter Pan, where we had the opportunity to play a little more fantasy, if you like. No, Andrew didn't want that. He wanted Narnia to be a real world.
I think in order to make the fantasy have the drama that you want, have the jeopardy that you want, you have to believe in the real place.
What we try and do with all these situations is have the rationale for the way they look. And Mr. Tumnus, Andrew suggested he might be a notary or have things to do with writing or documents and things in his life. So this helps us to start thinking of what sort of house is it that he lives in. Well, we always referred back to the illustrations in the book. Pauline Baynes originally illustrated it, so there were clues there about Mr. Tumnus's house, but we didn't always follow them to the letter.
Mr. Tumnus's house, it gave me so much, a lot of what was in there and how it was constructed really lay quite happily with the way that I'd seen him and seen where he lived, Such comfort, such coziness.
The wardrobe, well, that was a major project. I mean, it's probably the most important prop in the film. You always have to start somewhere. So we found the wardrobe that C.S. Lewis owned. It's a big oblong square wardrobe with a carving on it. The backstory to the wardrobe is that the professor, as a child, Diggory Kirk, appears in the story called The Magician's Nephew. And he goes into Narnia.
From Narnia, brought back an apple that he gave to his mother that cured her from an illness she had, and he then planted the apple core in the garden. It grew into a tree. When the tree died, he had it made into a wardrobe.
Andrew came up with the idea of why don't we tell the story of the magician's nephew in the carvings. So I went through the book and listed all these significant images that are carved into the panels of the wardrobe, plus the lions' heads at the top, sort of pediments of the columns, and at the bottom we've got the White Witch and her sister. So the whole of the wardrobe tells a really quite nice story.
The lamppost, obviously a fawn with an umbrella by a lamppost in the snow, is the image that C.S. Lewis held with him since he was 16, that that started this whole story. And that to me is just a really evocative image. And all the children pass Lantern Waste. They pass the lamppost. It's kind of like the eternal light that leads them into Narnia. So I wanted to try and make that feel as close to, again, my memory and my imagination of what it was when I read it as a child. Its origin was from when the White Witch first came to Narnia. At its conception, she had a piece of a lamppost. She had torn off a lamppost in our world while fighting the police, and she threw it at Aslan. It stuck into the ground, and like everything else in the world, started to grow.
When you watch the film, it's very subtle. You have to look for it, but the lamppost is actually rooted into the snow of the forest.
It's one of those things where any number of fans of the book that came to visit us all said, this is exactly how I imagined the lamppost in Narnia to be.
The design of the film is a star of the film, if not the star of the film. It's so beautiful, that snow land and those primary colours.
I wanted to make sure that our world, our Narnia, the Narnia that we put on screen, had all of the texture and reality that any other real world would be. It's an alternative reality. It's a somewhat idealized reality, but it exists. It's physical, it's real, there's real rules to the world. You know, the deep magic is something that's inherent to the land.
From the moment we started casting for the children, I knew how good he was going to be.
Give her a look up and down. Look how sweet she looks. Look how happy she looks.
I think Andrew's skill with the actors was really in providing the guidance and enthusiasm, particularly for these younger kids. I mean, to have a young person of 9 years age to sustain their interest over 12 months, day in and day out, is a great challenge for a director.
Okay, this is crazy. I don't know where the scene's going. Let's go back on script.
One of the things I did is I only cast children that I actually liked.
You can't just leave.
People that I wanted to hang out with really the hope that they would also like hanging out with each other.
Everyone give Skander a big hug.
No! Well, Andrew did an extraordinary thing by finding these 4 children who are as fresh as daisies, and they were delightful, and they managed to translate that freshness onto the screen.
I looked at, on tape, about 2,500 kids, probably met with about 700 of those, workshopped about 400 of them, narrowed it down to about 120 that I worked with on a more individual basis to get down to our final 4. I didn't particularly want to find actors as much as I wanted to find children that were capable of acting, but that were inherently like our characters.
We are all like our parts.
Anna, have you read all the books?
Of course I have.
Yeah,
Not.
Yeah, I have too.
Anna is the smart one, so...
I'm really, really happy to be working with such professionals.
Anna was somebody who I was just blown away by. I remember she arrived early for an audition scene and just came in and sat down and talked to me, and I could have been talking to a 25-year-old. Just so together and smart and mature, and so many of those things that I wanted Susan to be.
Anna is angel. Skander is demon.
Skander's very much like Edmund, I have to admit that.
He had these wonderful dark eyes. He looked like he could be George's older brother, and he definitely had that mischief in himself.
He's really like me. He's like always getting into trouble and stuff.
I've been working hard, but William on the other hand...
I've been doing loads of work.
Will is brother.
He so fitted Peter. You know, he was also at that point in life where he was halfway between childhood and manhood.
Let's go!
And was going through, personally, very much what Peter went through on his journey to manhood in this movie, and the responsibilities of being an older brother and a father figure.
Peter, wake up! Peter, wake up! It's really there!
Georgie really is like Lucy. She's like all innocent, which she really is, and a little annoying at times.
He stole my biscuit. That's what I like most about her, is she's like me a lot.
Get the hot tub!
Georgie Henley was just, I knew from the moment I saw her on tape that she was Lucy, and I'd looked at a lot of children by that stage. There was a moment where she was just so believable in her very first audition.
Come on, Peter, gastrovascular.
She really takes on the role, she feels the character, and she just goes with it.
Andrew, any notes? Cool.
So to direct, she's incredible. She's this imaginative, funny, the wittiest 9-year-old I've ever met.
I'm really not crazy.
And it was just all of those things that I wanted Lucy to be.
She calls herself the Queen of Narnia, but she really isn't.
The Queen in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe could be played very characterized, very cartoonish if you want. That's not who she is to me. She has to be as powerful and evil as Aslan is powerful and good.
I have no interest in prisoners.
Andrew and I agreed our first choice for the White Witch was Tilda Swinton.
One of the challenges with the White Witch that Tilda and I faced was avoiding the cliche. The character of the evil female has become somewhat of a cliche. I think it was somewhat original when C.S. Lewis wrote this character, but since then we've had, you know, the evil stepmother, the Cruella de Vil's, the sort of screeching, cackling women. And Tilda and I wanted to be sure that the White Witch didn't end up being there. In fact, that's one of the reasons I cast Tilda, is I just knew she would never go there. She was a much more sophisticated, complex actor.
Do you know why you're here, Fawn? Because I believe in a free Narnia.
Mr. Tumnus was a very difficult character to find. He was a character that basically had to kidnap a little girl and yet still be likable. So whoever I cast for the character had to be very warm and likable on first meeting.
You find the real person who's got to do a bad thing, and why does he have to do it, and why can't he stop himself doing it?
I had often said that he was somebody who had a double agenda. I kind of saw him almost like a German living in Nazi Germany discovering a Jewish child and knowing that the propaganda and the government was telling him to do one thing, but his internal ethics and morals were telling him another thing.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
When James came to audition, he got that double agenda. It came through in his performance, in his reading. He had that warm presence that you knew that could just come through on the screen.
No matter what happens, Lucy Pevensey, I am glad to have met you.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is we shot this movie, and then we had a significant number of actors still to go out and find. And these are the actors who did the voices of some of the creatures.
Impossible.
The character of Aslan was probably the hardest to cast. He's an omnipotent character. He has to be, you know, powerful, untouchable, and at the same time be sympathetic and vulnerable.
From here, I must go on alone.
You don't want him to be so strong and so omnipotent that at the point where he gives of himself and gives his life, you don't feel sympathy for him. Liam is somebody who just has an incredible resonance and depth to his voice. I mean, he has a voice that you can see coming out, you can hear coming out of a lion.
Welcome, Peter, son of Adam. Welcome, Susan and Lucy.
He had the warmth in his voice that would draw you to him. When he turns fierce and shouts at the White Witch, it is a roar.
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
There's a danger that he's able to project. And so I think he was perfect for this character.
It is finished.
Andrew's really amazing at picking the right voices for these roles. I mean, because you hear the people initially in whatever job they'd done previously, like, is that really Mr. Beaver, Ray Winstone? Is that really going to be Mrs. Beaver, Dawn French? But then when they do it, Andrew hears it. There's something in his brain or in his ears, something that he hears, something that maybe the rest of us don't hear initially. And it's not until he actually pulls it out of the actors that then it's like, oh, of course, why would you ever think it's anyone but that?
So then we come back and we say, all right, now we've got to create these characters in so many ways.
Richard, I didn't even see you there.
When Andrew came and approached us and asked us if we'd like to do Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, naturally we were really thrilled, and we felt that we could establish the world of Narnia for him and help in the development of the characters and the creatures and the armor and weapons and the various cultures of insignia on these things.
Do you have any particular feelings, Roger?
Andrew was incredible at the level of interaction he took with us. He was intimately involved and interested in every detail that we were getting involved in, which was a terrific thing for us.
I like the way she hangs upside down, has these very human hands to hang on with. That's really creepy.
I mean, I think number 10 takes that one step further, actually.
Yeah, it might be too creepy.
We're dealing with nearly every mythological creature ever invented.
We may actually want to tilt...
And to actually realize those and interpret them and come out with creatures that don't just look like animals but are really believable sentient beings.
In the case of C.S. Lewis's writing, of course, he's so celebrated in the Greek myth and mythology that a lot of his creatures were based strongly in the history of this mythology. But where the challenge came was actually trying to refine these characters, these mythological creatures, into something that works well on screen. It's one thing to see a illustrated or even a bronze of a half-man, half-horse twisting in some contorted position, galloping into battle, whatever. It's another thing to physically get it to work as a human-animal integration at a believable level. It's very important to us as we're designing this that they all feel like they belong in the same world. And that required a lot of very subtle, very complex design work. It's a capiche sword from the Egyptian culture and goes along with this, which is the Minotaur, the hero Minotaur's swords.
Wow.
Interacting with Andrew on a 2 or 3 time weekly basis.
I don't think the leg proportion is quite right in number 9.
To try and capture the various aspects of these creatures. This is the Minotaur armor.
And Richard and his team were just capable of this great understanding.
You can see there the Medusa's head.
Of the mythology, the history.
When Aslan bares his teeth, winter meets its death.
All of the things behind Narnia that would then come through in the designs of the creatures.
It's going to be a sizable army on the days. It's going to be fantastic, in fact.
When it came down to realizing and actually producing the full-size prosthetics and costumes and animatronics, Richard very reluctantly passed me on to a dear friend of his, Howard Berger.
Howie. Oh no.
Just for you. And I say reluctantly because Richard, I know, wanted to be able to complete the designs all the way through, and he was in fact able to stay involved with Howard.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
We had a hell of a week last week, but it was awesome.
But it was Howard and his team at K&B who ultimately realized these creatures.
We're doing a fashion parade.
We're doing a fashion parade. Oh, you put 5. A parade of monsters.
Right. Minotaur jog. And to add more fun, this is a goblin. I had a lot of great ideas, I thought. I went to the table with him, with Andrew, and he liked the work that K&B was doing, but I think he really liked the enthusiasm I brought.
Look how excited Howard is. He's a boy.
I would then go back after the meeting and be crazy and just so excited and think, and then call Andrew's assistant and go, can I get another meeting with Andrew? We're going to show it to Andrew and see what he has to say.
Well, it's hard to get it far enough away from
I know.
Here, of course.
But no, it's kind of like you're in Carabel right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Howard did pretty much stalk me, it's true, but it worked.
We got a crew of 30 that'll be traveling with us.
Howard, I don't think, had ever done anything of this scale before. Not many people have.
We'll hit him with the silicone sheen, you know, that'll give it like that oily, sweaty feeling.
It really was Howard's enthusiasm and love for the material that got him the job.
1, 2, 3, roar.
Very cool.
I mean, they're fantasy characters. You're not going to ever see anything walking around like that, but they're still reality-based to some degree, and they're reality-based to the world of Narnia. And that was it. It's like we wanted to make everything that was in Narnia feel that it lived within this universe.
And all credit to Andrew for choosing to utilize physical creatures on set, filming them, trying to capture the maximum he could actually in the real world alongside the children, alongside the other actors, to build and fabricate the rich diversity of creatures in the world of Narnia. But then, of course, there is handover to the digital effects department.
Because In many cases, whatever was created on set, we had to either extend or replicate. As you can see, the set, we can't actually build a great hall. We've got kind of a good hall, and we'll continue it and make it much bigger. The set goes at least 2 or 3 times as wide on either side. In many respects, all of that had to be in the same world as Andrew's vision, which again was this very realistic world. And so the level of technical challenges we would face would be to create fur that moved as realistically as any animal you would take out and photograph. And this was a heck of a lot of creatures we had to do this for. I mean, there's 30+ different types of creatures that all had to be either built in prosthetics and photographed on set, which we would then have to match and duplicate, or we would have to create them entirely in the computer.
And action.
When it's over and done with, we will have shot about 1,600 visual effects shots in this movie, which is not a record, but pretty close to it, and there are very few films that have had that many.
And cut. Good. Check the game.
And it takes Andrew Adamson to do that, but then he can, because he's the kind of boss on the virtual world.
Andrew, clean plate?
Yep.
And you want to look at green screen because they're done?
Sure.
He so wrote the book on special effects, and that's to the benefit of the film.
What we have to imagine is there's thousands of creatures here. It's not just the U-80 here. There's thousands of creatures.
Yeah,
so when
4,920 actually.
Oh. He comes from having been a visual effects supervisor. So in a strange way, no matter how many professionals and authorities we have on visual effects, we have a director who knows as much, if not more than they.
It's been a pretty remarkable experience working with Andrew on the film.
He really just uses the momentum and the mass.
He can give us direction that's specific to, adjust this animation control over here, or, the lighting. If you adjust these few technical things, it'll give me the look that I'm after.
I knew that whoever I brought in would have to tolerate my meddling, and at the same time be secure enough and experienced enough to be able to take things and run with them and push back on me.
When Andrew called me, it was at the moment where storyboarding was just beginning. And by the time also I came on board, Previs, computer-generated pre-visualization in the computer, had begun for a number of months. And Andrew has focused on the battle at that moment to tell not only himself but other people who were supporting the film exactly what kind of story he wanted to tell.
I think she would actually have to move him out of the way or something. It doesn't seem a good reason for him to back out.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to map out a lot of these very complex action sequences where we would define how we would achieve the shots on a shot-by-shot basis. We actually had the battle scene prevised probably 2 years before we started shooting it, and that was a very important part of the design process of finding the tone of the movie.
There were some instances that Andrew and I talked about in which I knew, even from just the script stage, that there was going to be nothing besides empty grass fields and some mountains, and that everything else in the image was going to have to be filled with computer-generated characters. From that standpoint itself, I knew the scope of visual effects was going to be extraordinary.
We started off with working with a company called Rhythm and Hughes. And Rhythm and Hughes is well known for their animation skills, and Andrew felt comfortable that they could handle some of the key roles.
One of the biggest things we had to figure out was how we're going to make a CG lion that really lives up to what everyone's expecting of Aslan.
And the paw comes out, and then his head comes out, and we cut and we check the gate.
I think the greatest excitement that I had was we were on location, and they brought to us on a small laptop computer a test that they had been working on, which showed a girl, actually 2 girls, walking down the street, literally just down any neighborhood street on the sidewalk, and in between them was a lion. And they showed it to us, and I was just absolutely struck by the fact that this was a completely real lion. The girls were touching him, he was walking, he shook his mane. It was just extraordinary. It was great. A great pick-me-up, it was a great morale booster, and we all of a sudden realized that this is going to happen.
There is a deep magic more powerful than any of us that rules over all of Narnia.
Aslan was such an important character to the film, such a critical role, that he had to not only look real, his movement had to be real, and then the acting performance we were going to get from this CG character had to be something you'd never seen before, and was equal to any actor we had on screen.
You have a traitor in your midst, Aslan.
His offense was not against you.
We had to build in the facial controls to be able to get every expression, every emotional beat that Andrew was going to demand. We also went to Sony Imageworks for some character work. That included Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, who have to be our most anthropomorphic characters in the film, in that you have to relate to them almost as if they're people, but still keeping in mind that they are animals and they have to still move and act like animals.
Andrew's experience with computer animation led him to work with these animators in just a very specific fashion. What's interesting about it is he will focus on a hand gesture, he'll focus on an eye movement, a turn of a head, and these are all things that I stand back and I marvel at, because when they're actually implemented and it's finally finished,
Put that down, boy.
you see the reason why he twitched the hand, why he turned his eyes, why he tipped the head just a little bit.
And cut it. I'll say it once more.
Andrew's certainly all over every aspect of it, and we have to rise to that occasion on every character, every background, everything we do. So there is an incredible eye to detail in this film.
As a filmmaker, I think I always want to bring something new. Anytime you make a movie, you want to give the audience something they haven't seen before. This book kind of dictated a certain scale and size that I believe it needed to be, and at a certain point the movie just takes on a life of its own. It just starts telling you what it needs to be. And as you just process it and think about it, it usually expands rather than contracts. And it's a big story. You know, this was an incredibly arduous film. We shot for 7 or 8 months, sometimes in distant locations. Sometimes people were practically living in wool sheds. And I always felt an enthusiasm and an energy and a love for the property from the crew, and an incredible support from the crew. I mean, they seemed to believe in the film as much as I did.
New Zealand was probably the very first place we thought about shooting.
It's such a phenomenally beautiful place, and it has a kind of mythical quality that is actually very cinematic. And it took about 12 years to shoot it.
There was not an easy day on this film. New Zealand, it is not equipped to do a movie of the scale. Few places are. Being able to get some of the equipment that didn't exist, being able to create snow, which we had to bring in, being able to get a real sound stage. But then that's part of it. It's part of just rolling up your sleeves and saying, how do we solve tomorrow's problem?
Where we recreated Lantern Way was an equestrian centre.
We walked into it and I said, well, you can't use this, the ceiling's too low. And then somebody came back with a great idea of actually digging the floor out.
We were able to dig down 6 or 7 metres below the surface and created our landscape by digging it out.
We ended up with probably one of the biggest stages in the world to film in, and we needed it to avoid Narnia getting claustrophobic.
I would say my journey on Narnia has been like a marathon running uphill.
Okay, we're getting ready to go, so stand by. Here we go.
Having gone through some epic battles in my day, I knew this was going to be one. But I don't think I was even prepared or actually really realized how emotionally and physically challenging this film was going to be.
When we went to the South Island to shoot the big battle sequence and Aslan's camp, it was like entering Narnia, truly. It was like walking into a storybook.
Hey, Mark.
And action chariot!
There's something very spiritually settled about that land. There are very few people who live there, and there's a huge sky, and there are some extraordinary mountains, and this sense of peace, which is really quite phenomenal.
All of a sudden, we had all these helicopters, and we had to get not just the cast and the crew up there, but all the equipment. It's very funny. You see a helicopter land, and out of it would come, you know, all these creatures, some of them with their heads on, some of them with their heads off, you know. So they put them on as they got out of the helicopter, and it really was a circus.
We had snow, sun, hail, rain before lunch, and then we had whole firestorms after lunch. It was beautiful. And the people from Los Angeles found it very difficult to handle the weather, and all the rest of us thought it was great.
We have 600 people we have to worry about. Where do they run and hide if it starts pouring rain? And where can we shoot if it does start pouring rain? What else can we shoot so we don't find ourselves with nothing to do?
And then you'd get out there, and on the moment, you could have had something that you thought you were going to shoot, and you thought the scene was, and then Don and Andrew would see something and be inspired by that, and all of a sudden you were shooting something you had no idea you were going to be ready for.
What if we laid the sword up on the rock there?
They are very spontaneous and creative individuals, and it's amazingly exhilarating to work with them.
Plus, on top of that, we had 4 very young children who were starring in our film, who'd never starred in a film before, were away from their families. They each had a parent there, but away from their siblings and their schools and their best friends for 6 months.
Do you want us to take that first step onto a stair?
That's what we mean, yeah.
Just keeping them from going a little crazy was a full-time job.
I knew this was going to be a difficult shoot, and I know this sounds kind of cheesy, I wanted it to be a nice set. I wanted it to be a place that the kids could come to and enjoy, and there wasn't going to be a lot of yelling and a lot of tension, that we were going to have fun making the film.
In directing the children, Andrew was there for them, which is very important when you have 500 people around you, all that energy coming down to your performance.
Looking around, and then you see the lamppost.
As a director, Andrew has a very special quality, which is a compassion and a understanding and a patience and a genuine warmth. And it really worked for this film with the children.
And I think what I really took away from this was the sense of a new family that it created with the kids and with the crew. The story, the movie, is about family. It's about this fragmented family coming together and in their unity defeating the White Witch and solving the problems of Narnia. And I really feel that as a crew, we came together as a family to overcome all the odds that we had in making such an epic film, and ultimately bringing something to the screen where I think the love that was felt on the set actually comes through on the screen.
Camera's gonna be here.
Okay. And you're gonna have a blindfold on. We're gonna
I'll be down there with
slowly
you,
take
though.
you down a ladder.
We'll still have to carry you down a bit. You have to go down the ladder.
Who's it?
It is.
Tell me when to duck.
We're not in Narnia yet. We're still on the stage.
Yay. We're scared, actually.
You'll be so excited. Keep your eyes closed.
They filmed my first entrance into Narnia in Kelly Park as though it was Lucy's first entrance in Narnia.
And action, Georgie. Open your eyes and turn around and walk out. Look at Narnia.
I turned around and opened my eyes, and I was just... That was really fun.
I'm sure millions of children did it. You go to the wardrobe in your house and you start knocking to see if anything's there. But it's just the fact that it just might be, and that you might be the child chosen to go to this magical land. And in a way, we four are, you know, brought to this magical land, I mean, this surreal place.
It's really changed my life being here.
If you ask ask me, Narnia is this film set. That probably sounds so cheesy, but who cares?
Probably the biggest surprise for me on the entire film was getting the part.
I wasn't looking for the chocolate box kids or the child actors. I was looking for real kids who could actually really understand and live these characters.
I was a girl who sang and danced in pantomimes and had a good time at school and, you know, all that good stuff. And I keep saying to myself that it was only a fluke that, you know, Pippa Hall the casting director came up to Yorkshire.
Every Thursday, I would go to a little community acting class after school. And yeah, I sort of learned sort of basic things and went up and up and up. And Pippa Hall, the casting director, came round and saw me.
My first audition, I just talked about myself, and Andrew said to me that the best thing about that audition was when I was talking about a book that I was reading. It was quite a sad book. And he said that when I talked about it, I looked sad. And he thought that that was good empathy. And then I went through a year and a half of auditions.
I was late, and there's a lot of traffic, and it was raining, so I ran in at the last minute, and people who had rented out the building next came in, like, get out, get out. So half of my audition tape was actually, like, in a corridor, in a lift, sort of everywhere.
As they got closer and closer, I became more and more nervous. Yeah, I mean, I remember doing a read-through, and I was so nervous, I was almost, like, shaking, you know, with the papers on, like, trying to focus.
I think I sort of pretended I didn't mind right up until the last couple of weeks, and then I really did mind.
Once, you know, Pippa Hall, the casting director, said, yeah, I'll be 6 months in New Zealand. And I was sort of cool. And then we got in the car, and like, yeah, we're gonna do it.
I think I probably deafened Mark and Andrew with screams of joy.
I'd never felt such euphoria, I don't think, ever.
It was a good day.
Fantastic. Lucy, come on! And everything changed for a little bit.
Bye, my dear. Bye, Mum. We'll miss you soon. Bye.
I've never been to New Zealand before, and before I came out, I was not scared, but obviously daunted about coming to a new country.
Probably more scary for my mum, you know, that I'm halfway around the world. Her eldest son leaves home at the age of 17 and lives halfway around the world.
Wow! This is so cool. Okay, now I've got to get on with filming.
The kids, they are kids, and it's all about them having fun, all right? And this movie works if those kids have as much fun as they can. They're kids. And we've talked about this for a long time, and let's just roll up the shirt sleeves and, you know, kick some butt.
It's total amazement for all of us just to be thrown into this huge, great big whirlwind of a film set.
Amen. And action.
The whole film experience is a bit like going into a wardrobe itself. It's kind of going into this sort of surreal world, like some amazing dream.
And just experience it together and to work through the adventure together.
And cut. Good.
Really did have a very sort of close bond.
You're saying that we should just believe her?
She's your sister, isn't she? You're a family. You might just try acting like one.
Peter winds up, poised to take yet another wicket.
Ow! Andrew really wanted to find children who got on with each other in those sort of family roles. And I've been really lucky to be a part of that sort of family unit. I feel that big sisterly thing.
Papa!
I was like, in my contract, can I say that I'm never with the other children again?
We are like a family, you know. We do get annoyed with each other, and we aren't afraid to say, get lost, leave me alone. We aren't afraid to because we know we love each other.
Hey!
You'd see Georgie feeling a little insecure and just go and sit on William's lap. Quite often you'd just see Anna walking along with her arm around Georgie. Skander was the funniest because he's 13 years old. He'd made a great pretense of trying to avoid any sign of physical affection, and we would just periodically yell group hug and all jump on him and give him a big hug while he squirmed. It was all a very natural dynamic.
It wasn't always glamorous. I mean, I was sort of kitted up in wetsuits and wading around in mud or paper snow, or it definitely wasn't always glamorous.
Every day, we were pulling everything out of ourselves to get the best performance, to really do ourselves justice.
You're doing something where you have to give out a lot of energy and you have to concentrate. So that was hard, but it was always fun.
I was a little boy inside, really excited to be doing sword fighting.
Come on, Ed, sword point up, like Ori's showed us. Oh, God. Now block. Hey!
The first day when we were going for training, I was like, yes, I'm finally going to be able to actually do it properly.
I've had a lot of sword practice and we've rehearsed this a lot of times and it's been really carefully thought through.
Action!
As a child I had this bag of swords and loads of different shields. I've always loved sword fighting and knights and everything and it's been really cool for me and I've really enjoyed it.
And action!
With a fat minotaur, like 6'8" in front of you, a big ogre over there, a goblin, they yell cut pigs off his head. It always felt slightly surreal, but it was so fun, the sword fighting.
For Narnia! And for Aslan! Horse riding, I absolutely love. I think we're going to go out on a hack sometime. We're going to get out to the beach as well. So it's going to be really good galloping along the beach, one of the few things I want to do in my life. And we've been doing a bit of sword fighting as well, but I snapped the last sword we had, which was plastic. I went in too much. I think I thought it was a minotaur or something like that. Andalusian, they're like Spanish horses. They're so beautiful, so soft. They're so clever as well. This is the first time I've ridden in bareback, so it's going to be a new experience.
Riding like you normally would, Nick Raymond.
You know that you're going through the pain at that stage, but you know that there's going to be some satisfaction at the end of it. And there certainly was. You know, I did things that I would never really dream of.
Stand up there. Yeah, that's it. Good.
Where are you going?
To get in some practice. I'd done archery once before on a school adventure week, but certainly not in this context.
Am I twisting that?
Just a little bit.
And it was wonderful. I was trained by an Olympic archery expert, and it was not something that I would have had the chance to do in normal life at home. At first I found it quite difficult, but it got easier. I really enjoyed being a part of it.
No matter what happens, Lucy Pevensey, I am glad to have met you. You've made me feel warmer than I felt in 100 years.
The feeling comfortable and the homeness comes from the people you're around. It's just been really nice because New Zealand's such a relaxed place and everyone's really open.
The people in New Zealand, they rock.
All right, hit your tree!
Well, they just keep you going.
Everyone from the producers downwards all the way were just so lovely, and it was really amazing to get to know everyone.
When you're on set, it's so good and such, so fun with everyone, and 5 different individual people, like, hey!
We were just so well looked after. That was the lucky thing.
Coming out. We're doing them coming out right now, and then we're going to get into the scene this afternoon.
He's a director.
And on the other end of the camera is the person who doesn't listen to the director. You know, I was actually terrified about doing a movie with children. It's a scary thing to do, you know, to pin your future on children.
He's not only a genius, which is rare enough in itself, but he's a nice genius.
And he can, like, laugh if something goes wrong in a take. He's not going to go, oh, come on, let's do it again, come on. Oh, because in the script, I have to take a step back.
No, don't worry about the script.
Cool, got it.
First rule, don't worry about the script. Finish the line, then you can go look for your snowball, and don't start your next line until you've found your snowball. What I really loved about working with all of the kids is that they gave me more energy than I actually even put into them.
Ow!
Did you see?
Okay, let's go.
Andrew allowed us to have a snowball fight with him. It was so funny. William got him right where it hurts. I got hit in right on the forehead, and I got him right on the top of the noggin. That was fantastic. It was heavenly.
Yeah, and Georgie, if you can get William in the head again, that was good.
He's really outgoing, and he's an extremely nice guy. He's really sweet. I've really enjoyed working with him.
And cut.
How are you finding your costumes?
I think they're really sweet. I think they're really good, and I think that they didn't in the they must have had quite cute clothes in the 1930s and 40s. My coronation dress. Oh, it felt so good. I'm Queen of Heaven.
They were so beautifully done, and just to put on like a 1940s clothes, and you know, once the clothes are on, then it almost becomes part of you. You know, you almost become Peter for the day, or for the 7 months. This is a coif, which I'm wearing at the moment. This chainmail at the top. I do have a helmet, but I'm not wearing that at the moment. They call this the Iron Fist. These are called van braces, which work as a basic arm guard.
I can't move my head or I'll be stabbed.
I'd like you to stand in the mirror, Skander, for us, please, so we can get a look at what you really look like.
I'm physically there, you know. I'm not having to act a hero. I'm not having to pretend in a green screen outfit, you know. Once you get it on, you sort of stand back and you stand tall. Hero.
Thank you. At the coronation, we're all sort of decked out in velvet. It was really lovely. It was fun to dress up. Andrew's very into real reactions.
Here we are in Narnia. It's really cool. It's so cool, actually. And I'm just about to do the scene where I meet Mr. Tumnus.
But they kept Mr. Tumnus a complete secret from her. She'd never seen me as Tumnus, not even seen a photograph or anything.
Emma is and James in first positions. When I first saw Mr. Tumnus,
I screamed! I was like, ah! Ah!
We're in such a big, humongous job, but we're still worrying about how the actor reacts and how we can be innovative with young actors and feel the magic that they should be feeling.
That's great. You look like you're really excited. Look at that.
So many different factors contributed to getting lost in the scene. For instance, the sets.
The entire scale of it. What they did was they dug it out and then they put like 40-foot trees in it and then like covered it all with like gallons and gallons and gallons of fake snow. It's amazing how realistic it was.
A lot of the times I'd wonder whether they've created this for us or for the audience, you know, because a lot of these things weren't going to be seen. A lot of these details, a sewing machine for Mrs. Beaver, you know, needles or something in the corner. But for us, just to see it and just to feel that we're actually there, it was really, really amazing that we were all just there together, believing and trusting.
Children are just so open, and they're so able to believe in what they're doing.
You see, the only wood in here is the back of the wardrobe.
One game at a time, Lou. We don't all have your imagination.
Got it wrong. I looked right instead of looking left.
That's all right.
weren't what we needed.
I wouldn't know, I went like this.
I think being in a film or being on a set really makes you look at cinema in a different way. When you're watching a film, you think, oh, I wonder how they did that, or I know how they did that.
Special treatment for the special boy.
And cut it.
Cut it. Checking the gates.
Got it. Checking gates.
Checking the gates, please.
Check the gate is when it's a good take and the director's happy with it, so he says, check the gate, which means check it. And there's always a cameraman who looks in and says, gate's good.
Yeah, to make sure there was nothing in the gate of the camera, which is the correct terminology.
And if the gate's good, then we'll use the take. And if the gate's not good, then we'll have to do another one.
Cut it. Good. Checking gates.
Checking the gate.
Check the gate.
Check the gate. What's up? Check the gate. Show me what you got. Check the gate.
That was just something that I don't know how it actually came about.
So I said, why don't we have a song for Check the Gate? And then Skander actually made up the song.
Check the gate.
What's up? Check the gate. Show what you got. Check the gate. What's up?
Check the gate.
Show what you got. Check the gate. What's up? Check the gate. Show what you got. Check the gate. Check the gate. Show them what you got and check.
You saw outside. This place is huge. We can do whatever we want here. Tomorrow's going to be great.
The weather's completely crazy. It just changes all the time. I feel so sorry for the people who have to organise what we shoot and when we shoot.
I'm leaving if we get this shot done. But it's meant to be summer, and it's going to snow any second now.
A lot of the time we'd be working in a studio, but as the film moved on and it became summer in New Zealand and springtime in New Zealand, we started to do more outside.
That river is wet.
That river is wet. It was freezing, absolutely freezing, barefoot. It's amazing the amount of fuss that's made as well, because the moment we step out of the water, it's like foot spas, towels, hot water bottles, blankets.
Yeah. That changed the look on your face.
Even though we did have a lot of rain and times when it was difficult with the weather, you know, out of it all, we were really lucky with everything. I'm so glad we got down here at last, because I've been dying to see the South Island for such a long time, you know, and it's so phenomenal just to see the real beauty of New Zealand.
Today we've got a scene at Aslan's Camp, so I can't wait to see it. It's very exciting, it's very beautiful, and it's very sunny.
One of my favourite scenes was me and Will horse riding up these rocks in like lush green grass and boulders and amazing New Zealand scenery, with the sun glaring down and you have the wind of New Zealand going through your hair, and it's like, whoa.
Our nearest location of civilization is Christchurch, and we're about an hour and a half away from Christchurch. The Cast and Prosthetics are staying in these little ski chalets, which are about 12 minutes from set, which are not civilized at all.
It's so crazy they're having all these helicopters, isn't it? Do you think it's mad?
It's really weird because they like tilt when we're going over the bush. We're like, ah!
Georgie.
So no school today, it's baking cakes.
Food studies. Home ec.
There was my birthday, which was amazing.
I was really dreading it, because I was away from home and my family had just gone and I was going, and then sort of, you know, a whole new family come up. It was really great to have everyone be so friendly.
Happy birthday. Oh, thank you so much. inches.
And my voice broke. Andrew was getting stressed.
Fortunately, they all grew, so they kind of kept in check, and we just had to keep like tilting up a little bit and extending costumes a little bit.
Tight for your eye.
Well, my neck.
Still a little bit tight.
That's as far as I go.
Yeah.
I think your shoulders are broadened out.
See, I think
his head's gotten big.
Swollen like a balloon.
I've grown 4.5 inches in New Zealand. Ow. It's still going. Ow.
And there was one stage where we were shooting where she actually had growing pains in her legs, and we had to stop and wait while her legs grew another inch.
My dad hasn't seen me for 3 months. He came back and he saw me and he touched me on the shoulder and I stood up and I was almost looking at him eye level and you should have seen the shock on his face. Get the girls! I get them home! And this is what it's meant to be about, you know. I'm meant to have changed from this experience.
And cut.
I don't think you can go through that kind of experience without changing. Just completely overwhelming that we've actually been here for 6 months.
I'm decorating the Christmas tree.
It's been so long away from home, and it's been really hard to call home because of the time difference. It's like 12 hours. I have to get up in the middle of the night or in the middle of like morning, or yes, it's been really tough.
We're all very tired and we're all sort of almost needing home.
We're so close to the end now. We just got to stay positive. Nothing can stand in our way.
It's going to be a pretty elating experience when it's finally over. And thinking this is the last week and thinking, oh, this is our last Monday, everyone said, this is our last Tuesday, everyone said. It's sort of kind of bizarre that we will never be coming back after that.
We finished filming up on the hill today with James, and we stayed and watched Skander do his last shot, which was really sad, actually.
Cutting! Cut!
See?
Tomorrow is our last day of shooting, Saturday, and then Sunday is the wrap party, and I travel home Monday morning, so it's all really coming to an end very quickly.
This experience for me has been magical. So magical. It's been amazing.
Really, just the whole thing is one big, fun journey, really.
When you do a film of this size, I think the surprises are this size. I think the emotions are this size. I think the pressure is this size. But it's all good, you know. It's all part of the experience. It's all part of the huge up here experience.
It's so wonderful to have met so many great people and to have had all of the surreal and bizarre experiences that we have had.
Casey and Tom.
Once I go home, I think it will be like a kind of dream. It'll be like coming back from Narnia and everything just kind of... When you watch the film, it's really easy to watch a film just as a story, but I hope that through watching it, they can experience some of the enjoyment that we got out of filming it.
We're just 4 normal kids. Normal kids from England.
Let's check the gate. Check the gate.
Check the gate. Watch yourself. Check the gate. Show what you got. Check the gate. Watch yourself. Check the gate. Show what you got. Check the gate.
Okay, if the gates are good, that would be a wrap.
I'm Richard Taylor. I'm here at the Weta Workshop. We had the great pleasure of looking after conceptual design, armour and weapons, and creature scannable maquettes on Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe for 3 years. I very much consider that good film starts with good design. We have 8 full-time designers and 12 full-time sculptors that are conceptualizing the look of a project that we're on. It all starts with illustration, quick, fervent exploration through sketch art into the world. But very, very quickly we then develop that into colour art, into very beautiful illustrative concept art. Influences of design are inspired by the mythology that C.S. Lewis was drawing from, right back through Grecian times into so many diverse cultures of our own world. One of the things that we try and do with our design work is develop all of the cultures within a world. Then you can solidify the reality of that world, because it suggests that the characters on screen are not existing in the moment that they were filmed, but actually have a life well beyond or existing before that moment.
There's the pole arms of the goblins. So you can see very different cultural references in those two weapons, but they're there to do exactly the same job.
How did the Minotaur ultimately come to be, and how did these wonderful array of mythological creatures exist and survive and have a community within the world of Narnia? One of the things that we've strive to achieve with our work is a sense of factual reality, a gritty realism, that the actors are not being handed a prop with which to act with, but rather that they will live or die by their success with which they can wield the sword. Making the weapons look aged, putting life into them, rubbing back the leather, making sure that they don't feel fresh and highly polished, so that the weapons, the armor, the props feel like they live and belong in that world, is all important aspects of the process.
There's a great weapon down here. This is the two-handed axe that the Minotaur carry, which is a huge piece of weaponry. Certainly open a few cans with that.
We split our weapons off into 3 very designated groups. Hero, we call them hero weapons. These are the weapons that an actor will hold for tight close-ups. They're made as closely to how a weapon would have been made in the medieval era. The only difference being that we're using power tools to grind away the metal rather than a foot-turned grinding wheel. Next weapon is an aluminium or aluminum bladed weapon with a urethane handle. This is for close-up stunt fighting. They're incredibly light, but they look very, very real. And then the third weapon that we make is a totally urethane weapon. This is a material very similar to skateboard wheel rubber. And this allows us to produce weapons in very, very large numbers very quickly that still look very accurate on screen.
And these are really beautiful weapons. These are pole arms that are carried by the fawns. We've made 2 different sorts of these, and they're completely urethane once again.
But of course, in turn, it still has to look totally real, and that comes down to the great skills of Surasak, our senior painter, and his crew to put those paint finishes onto the surface that will look wooden and metallic to the camera. Armour is a surprisingly pesky thing when you come to film it. It's metallic, therefore it's reflective. And in a real battle, in the real medieval era, it didn't matter that the world was reflected in this beautiful, polished, round piece of armour. But of course, on screen, the last thing you want to reflect is what's in front of me right here. The director, the cameraman, the crew, the city of Auckland. We put a very subtle hammer blow over the surface of the armour. It puts a little tiny round dent over the whole surface, and that shatters the reflection. But it still will reflect a broken surface of the camera crew and camera. So we went through a very difficult process of developing just the right reflective quality to the surface of the armour that would give the correct reading on film, look as though it's majestic and handmade and in steel and replicating of a real authentic suit of armour, while staying away from reflecting the whole crew to the rest of the world. As the film draws to an end, it's the worst part of the process. People always say to me, oh God, you must be so pleased it's nearly finished. You can sleep, you can rest. But it's not like that at all. You've had this opportunity, you've got to know this amazing group of people, you've got to explore this incredible world, make lots of cool things. It's almost like you have been away on this amazing holiday with a group of friends and are exploring the most outrageous and wonderful parts of the world, and now you're having to come back to work.
I'm Howard Berger from K&B Effects Group, Inc. We designed all the inhabitants of Narnia for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Our biggest challenge on this show was just the sheer number of characters that we had to create, 170 characters plus. We had the good guys, being all Aslan's troops, and the bad guys, being all the White Witch's troops. You know, we created 23 individual species, and I wanted all those 170 characters to be as real as possible, and that you would believe they existed and felt organic and felt alive. We had never had such a large crew in the shop. We had never had such a large crew on location. We'd never had to produce so much stuff. I think it's the largest creature show, and what we had to produce every day on set was gigantic.
Lay a little hair, or see what we have. Lay a little hair coming off this stuff. Stringy, matty crap. Not a lot, though, but a little.
A normal day on the set of Narnia for us would be 2 in the morning, and I got to have everybody on set by 6. And we had 4 vans, and I would wake everybody up. And we're like, okay, 2 o'clock, everybody meet outside. We'd pack everybody in, do the checklist. Okay, say here if you're here. So once in a while we forgot people. And I'm like, dude, we better have a checklist.
Thomas is in this suit. There's a muscle suit that's on here. It's very crazy. Has like moving shoulders and all that stuff. And then there's this fur suit that goes over it, and he has arm extension and a mechanical head. And Thomas also plays our gorilla.
The first time we did it, it took us 6 hours to get 85 characters ready. We would shoot a good 14 hours, and then we'd go back and take everybody out of their costumes, and then it was repair and cleanup time, and put the guys back in the suits and do it again. It's always at the end of the day you're happy, but you're sad. You're like, I'm so happy the day's over, but I'm so miserable that I have to clean all this stuff up.
It went pretty well, actually, for the first day. Very few glitches, so I think we were rather successful.
Part of our job, unfortunately, is having to torture actors and extras. I mean, on this show, we had a lot of stuff. Everybody was in some form of makeup, some sort of suit. Suits weigh a certain amount of, weight. Plus, then you add all the Weta armor, which adds more weight. Or mechanical heads that are heavy and are noisy because all the servos are going off, and they're blind as bats.
1, 2, 3, roar.
That's great. The heads were jam-packed with servos. Everything was radio controlled. There was no cable-operated heads at all. So it would take about 3 puppeteers to operate one head. For the Minotaur, you had a guy that was on lips and jaw, and you had a guy that was on eyes and blinks. So you have a guy that did nostrils and ears. And then you had the actor inside the suit that would create the gross movement. The thing is, when you're puppeteering something, you really have to get to know the actor inside and understand his rhythm, because you basically then have 4 brains that have to work as one.
We have work to do.
Originally, Ottman had no dialogue, and then we were at the White Witch's camp, and Andrew said, can you have him say this line? And I was like, yee. So I went over and talked to the guys. I'm like, can you make him do this? I'm like, yeah, let us just work it out. And they worked out real fast, and he was able to say the dialogue. And Ottman kept, every day, got more and more dialogue, although it wasn't in the script.
And whoa!
Your Majesty, the humans are with Aslan at the stone table.
You've seen Aslan?
I had difficult days. It was myself and Casey Hoddenfield, the first AD, got into it only twice. And once was at the stone table. It was probably 3 in the morning. And we were literally ready to shoot. And it was, you know, the line was up on the table and the White Witch was there and all these creatures were there. And I hear Casey go, okay, ready and roll cameras.
Let's roll, please, rolling!
And then Andrew leans over to me and goes, we should put mechanical heads in those guys. And I went, Andrew, roll. And he's like, no, no, no. Cut. Go and put mechanical heads in those guys. I went, so I ran up the stone table and I went up there and Casey's like, what? And I went, Andrew wants me to swap these heads out for mechanical ones. And then Casey just exploded on me and started yelling at me. It's like, this is your fault. Next day, of course, he came over to me. He's like, I have to apologize. And I apologized. We made up, of course. Then, you know, a month later, Casey blew up at me again. I remember going and visiting my friend Richard Taylor in New Zealand when he was doing the Lord of the Rings films. And everybody there believed in what was going on 100%. Gandalf was real, Frodo was real. And I just sat there going, wow, I wonder if I'm ever gonna have the opportunity to work on a film where I buy it 100%. You know, like I just really believe, you know, this is real and this is real. And when we started this film up, that ended up happening. We're building the inhabitants of Narnia. And that's how I wanted to approach it. From the time we started pre-production to the time we wrapped the film, which was about a year, we all lived in Narnia, and it was wonderful.
My name is Isis Musendan, and I am the costume designer on Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. The essence of the art of costume design has always been connected to storytelling. Yes, we produce clothes like the production designer produces a set, but we're connected to the actors who are telling a story. And my job is to visually tell the story through the actors' clothes, to enhance the performance, and to help the actors feel what they need to feel as they're going along. It is a complete collaboration between the actor, the director, and the costume designer. And it's the most exciting part of our job. Yes, we design clothes. Yes, we produce clothes. But we are not fashion designers, we're costume designers. Our job is to tell the story.
Off the top of my head, creative process, brown leather.
I started in fashion, not because I didn't want to do costume. I went to Parsons School of Design and have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Fashion Design, but only because I didn't know that you could study costume and story and theater. I just knew this was always what I wanted to do, growing up around people shooting films around us all the time in Hollywood. And I had a huge learning curve as far as film and theater went. So in just years and years and years of practicing and doing every kind of film, from $1 million, like I said, $1 million film to a $200 million film, to effects, to period costume, to fantasy, some television in there, has brought me to Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. We work very closely with the director from the beginning, before the actors cast, before they come in, and then again when they're cast, working with Andrew as to what he wants from this character and what he's looking for. As a costume designer, your dream is to find a director that you can work with, that you are challenged, that you think is smart and good at what they do. And that is your dream. That is a lifelong goal, I think, as a designer. And I feel that way about Andrew.
And then interweave this in so that the whole costume and the hair kind of weaves together. And then bring this up again down here with more volume.
We would get into the characters of each of these different kind of animals, like our hags that were layers and layers of fabric with these hooded pieces and these faces that Howard did and these big ugly feet and these hands that were all gnarly. We made jewelry out of last night's chicken bones that were dried out and teeth and feathers and found objects. I mean, it was just a gas. Since we shot the movie in continuity, which was fantastic for many reasons. The children began small and grew. You know, we had to change shoes and socks and dresses and remake stuff as they got older. But it also helped, I think, the entire film crew to just start at the beginning of the story, to take the journey the way the children took the journey through the war, into the professor's house, and into Narnia all together. We felt like we made like three different films. And you could feel the mood of the crew change each time we shifted gears into something else. And then the day we went to Narnia and opened the back of the wardrobe into our equestrian center that had been changed into a magical winter wonderland, we did that journey with those kids, and we showed up that morning and everybody was just in awe. It was the most beautiful thing we'd ever seen. Months and weeks of them wearing all these English clothes and all these skirts and woolen skirts and these tops and stuff, and as they're kind of loosening up, we started the fittings on the Narnian dresses and the Narnian tunics for the boys. And that's when we really started to see the children just bloom. They were so happy to get out of those old clothes.
I'll just show you. That's how excited we are about this scene today. We are dying to get me in the armor. Dying.
And Anna Popplewell, who is one of the sweetest and kind of reserved young girls, she put this dress on and she took a big breath, and has this yards and yards of a skirt. She picked up the skirt, she started twirling around, and she just like went dancing around the room. And it was just glorious to see her like take off and see what was gonna happen. And I told Andrew the story, and Andrew blocked the scene with some of that happening because that was what really happened. Then the third part of our movie, we called it, was when we went to the South Island to begin shooting the battle.
You have to stand still.
I'm not good at standing still.
That looks really good.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. Armor up all the dwarves going into combat. It's gonna be a big day.
This battle was coming, and it was ever looming, and it was taking up tons and tons of time because there was so much work to be done. When it got to the creatures, there was Howard Berger from K&B, there was the people at Weta Workshop, there was myself and visual effects. So now we had this huge other group of people that we needed to correspond with on a daily basis as to what we were doing, what was needed, how many were needed, who was doing what. It was an enormous puzzle piece. My associate designer, Kimberly Adams, who's just brilliant, took on the battle. We had many different creatures, and we had many different species, and it was great fun because it was a menagerie of people we worked with. We had ogres that were 380 pounds, real bodies to deal with. Underneath the tents in the South Island, shooting the battle was one of the most interesting film experiences I've ever had. The people were so interesting from all these different worlds. Yeah, it was like the circus. My favorite moment of shooting this film and being on the set was when we first shot Mr. Tumnus's house. And I happened to be on the set that morning, and I come in, and I did not know that Andrew had gotten Harry, the composer, to put together a dub of Tumnus's theme, this music. Lucy's in there in my favorite costume of hers, and this favorite set of mine with Mr. Tumnus, and Andrew puts the tape on, and it was magic. Everybody's heart just soared. It's the most gorgeous music. Mr. Tumnus is playing his flute, and he's hypnotizing Lucy. And that was the moment we just went, oh my God, this movie's gonna be beautiful. I mean, it's just magical. This movie was one of the most wonderful journeys I've ever had. I grew, and I took my place as a costume designer in a way that I had never had the opportunity to do before.
I'm Roger Ford, production designer of The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. No matter how big the project, or how difficult it seems, or how impossible it may seem when you first read the script, there's always a way through. The solutions are there, you just have to find them. Embarking on this project was intimidating. It's a hugely loved set of stories.
But could you enhance the colour of it?
We have to do an amazingly good job, I think. It's the imagery that is created in the imagination that makes the book so special. And that's why you're given the task of designing the movie, which is a formidable task. Because if you can't produce an image that is almost better than the one they imagined, then you're going to disappoint the viewer. So you're faced with this huge challenge to actually delight the viewer. Well, that's my job, basically. In the process of developing the film, you're constantly faced with choices. And your job is to know that this is going to look better than that. Or this works, this will work, that in some way won't. So you've got to be a bit of a sociologist in the way that you enjoy working out how people live their lives, what they surround themselves with. That's part of the business of production design. You've got to enjoy working in a team of people.
Even looking back up this way towards the wardrobe, you need trees back here.
Very good for running horses.
Yeah.
Directors vary enormously. And to every one of them, you've got to be able to give totally to their film. Once you've accepted how big it is and how difficult some aspects of it are going to be, you gather the very, very best people you can around you. Because none of it is an individual effort in the art department. It's a huge team of people you pull together. And you're very dependent on their talents and their abilities.
And is there any reason that we wouldn't carry the trees further back?
That ugly word again?
And the budget has to be agreed to before you start spending it. And especially at the beginning of the film, there are times when producers are nervous.
Hi, this is Mark Johnson. I'm the producer. It's my first day in the production office, and Roger is showing me around the art department.
Just a little guided tour. There's quite a bit to see here. This is the first time they've worked with you. You appear to be wanting to spend an awful lot of money on, for instance, dressing the professor's house. His house is furnished with furniture going back to 1600. Full of, interesting stuff from around the world. All expensive stuff to acquire and to hire. So we put in our estimates and it was like, what? From the producers. It's just a house. How could it cost this much money? It was in our budget, but they just thought, this is too much. I have to say, when it comes to the crunch, I like to get what I want. So they basically said, come back to a meeting and tell us, give us some good news on this. So we went back to the meeting and I sat down and I said, I know you're looking for good news, but what I'm saying to you is that I want to spend the money. And that was it. They was like, oh, okay.
Isn't there anything we can do to help Tom this?
No, we've taken him to the witch's house.
The beavers in Narnia, in their house, they have tables and chairs and cups of tea and plates of food. So what we decided to do, which is really nice in the movie, was to obviously make everything in the house, every prop, every piece of furniture, including the house itself, was made to the scale of the beavers, which was a lot of fun. But of course it produces huge problems for the film crew. Film crew of 30 people trying to look inside a beaver's house. But Andrew went with it. I mean, he was really good about it. I'm not an on-set kind of person. I'm hopeless on set, actually. I crack jokes at the wrong time, and if I'm not careful, I get in the shot, and so I'm best out of it, and only too glad to be out of it. I'm not an on-set kind of person, actually. So the best moment of the day for me is when I can walk out of the studio, everything's fine, the director's happy, the first shot's in the can, and I can get in my car and drive away. Hey, the rest of them are going to be stuck in that studio for the next 12 hours. This situation where you have minimal scenery and a lot of green screen, which you're going to replace with something that will eventually be created in a computer. In some instances, this is exciting and it helps to sell the set, because in the film in Paddington Station, suddenly we cut to a wide shot over the top of the carriage, and now you see other trains, more people, the extent of the station. So it helps me. For me, one of the most moving moments in the film is this moment when Lucy goes into this room and the wardrobe is there covered with the cloth. In the book, it suggests that it's just a wardrobe in an empty room somewhere in the house. We decided that the professor knows that it's in some way has magic qualities. And what he's done, he's put it into an empty attic room and he's covered it with a dust cloth. So when Lucy opens the door and goes into the attic, and at the end of the room, all the woodwork and everything directs your eye to this thing at the end of the room, which has a cloth over it. And this little girl, she makes her way to the wardrobe, she pulls the cloth and it falls, almost in slow motion, and the dust rises from it. It's the most fantastic shot in the film. I don't make close friendships usually on films. I make close working relationships. But I do get very sad often when the film is finished. For me, it was a year of my life, and you get close to the film and the idea of the film, and when it's finished and it's taken away, there's an emptiness, but it's just part of the game. It's what you do, and you look around for the next script.
I'm Don McAlpine, the director of photography on The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I'm partly dyslexic, so when I read a script, I probably read it a bit slower than most people. And even at that first reading, I'm starting to make scenes. And then on the second reading, I'm almost placing cameras in imaginary situations. Use this backdrop. I mean, that's something I've been cursed or blessed with. So when I do read a script, I do see a movie. And it's amazing in some ways how similar the final film ends up being to what I remember seeing when I read it. We're well into the camp on it, 27. I'm always looking for something I haven't done or something that truly will challenge me. And so far I've been lucky enough to get my fair share.
Action!
I think the mood's good. It is good. The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe was really a reality drama, a piece of true dramatic filmmaking that happens to tell a fantasy story. Andrew wanted me to provide a solid, dramatic, true and sincere background with my photography. I had to go back and make the lighting look as though there wasn't lighting. Never do particularly extreme framing or extreme camera work that made you feel you're watching a movie. If this came back a foot, then that might help that angle a bit. It's a game you play, and you never really play it honestly, but you play it as well as you can. I'm asking the audience to forget that this is a screen and get in and believe what is going on. And are we doing body makeup on that?
I wasn't anticipating it, actually. I kind of like the tone of his body, though.
Pre-production on a film like this magnitude is just an essential. I mean, you just cannot start a film like this without knowing very, very precisely where you're going. I just sit and listen to the director talking to me. I listen to him talking to the production designer. I listen to him talking about makeup, hair, wardrobe, to the effects people. I'm accumulating an immense amount of knowledge about this particular project, all of which I can use to probably get a good film and to exercise certain economies. How far are you moving, Pip? How far are you moving?
Up to that 1650.
Oh, they think that. With these complex films like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, one of the things I think I've learned, and Andrew intuitively knew, was we had to guard against the straitjacket that all this preparation imposes on you. You have to always be looking for a better way of doing it. And even though you've done all the pre-production, all the pre-visualisation, all the storyboards, all the models and all the rest of it, that's what you fall back on if you can't really find a better solution. Because you're dealing with real people in not a real environment, but in an environment. And even children will show you something new. They say, oh, shouldn't I? Well, maybe you should. And, you know, once they do that, then boom, there goes all your planning, but it's better, so you use it.
So how are you, Dom?
Oh, pretty good. And you?
I'm cool. How are you?
Now hold the camera nice and steady. Don't keep wobbling around like that. Being a cameraman, I missed a lot of my children growing up. And it was interesting to see the journey of those 4 children over a year. All change, all develop, all, I think, benefit from the experience of the film.
Don't look into the light!
So you're there, and then you go to her, and you've got to get... Working with children has the basic limitation that they're going to give you one good take, and that good take is going to be almost an accident. So it means everything you photograph has to be usable. You have to go to a far more generalised, wider style of lighting. You can't have a beautiful beam of light coming down, hitting in a little spot where you expect this kid to walk into it, do the marvellous performance and then walk out. From a purely personal point of view, the wonderful thing about a soundstage is the car drives you up to the door, you walk through the door, go to your chair, look at the monitor, and you're there. The whole world's in front of you, and you can plan precisely, do exactly what you want. Changing stop, go back to 17. But the serendipity that nature provides exterior forces you to a truth that you'll never ever get on the soundstage. So there.
Okay, going to the far pan.
Exterior, I find that sometimes the real magic will happen. The sun will light a mountain range in a way that you just can't dream that had happened. And of course, other days you can just sit in a tent while it rains.
Pulled out here.
Are your gloves on?
Get a little wider.
All right, a little wider. We won't argue about that. From my professional point of view, one of the really successful elements of this is the integration of our stage Snow, which we shot in New Zealand, and the relationship to the film we did in the Czech Republic. And it is probably the most seamless interior-exterior I've ever done. That all came out of the fact that I had a chance to see the Czech Republic before I shot the stuff in New Zealand, and it came out of a great heap of luck. When we went back to Czech Republic, there was no snow. They'd had the worst winter ever. And that night, down she came. Like buckets and buckets, feet of snow all over the place. Beautiful, white, clean snow that we'd bet on in New Zealand, and exactly what we saw 12 months earlier. You realise that luck is still part of the game. When you get down there, have a look where that camera is. I've been asked many, many times, why am I still functioning as a cinematographer? Why am I still working? I've seen hundreds of very, very talented guys who've come and gone. Obviously, I can expose film, and the films I shoot have some sort of style, but there's far more to it than that. There's far more to it than the technique. I think it's the relationships you've got to develop with all the other people around you, the constancy of doing work. It's blind luck too. I mean, let's be honest. Luck plays a massive part in everyone's career. I guess it's just that somehow or other I can put part of me into the film.
My name is Sam Evan-Jones, and I'm the film editor on Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. You know, I started off in England, and the only full-time kind of job I could get was with an animation company, and I thought, well, maybe if I stick around at this long enough, I'll get to go to the States, and maybe if I stick around at that long enough, I'll get to work on a big live-action film with lots of special effects. I thought that was all going to happen within about, 36 months, and it's taken, 12 years or something, but, we're getting there. There was a way of working that Andrew and I developed that was creating the script using storyboards as well as conventional script writing tools. So we would start off with script pages. These are storyboarded by storyboard artists, and Andrew takes a look at those. They're refined by the storyboard artist. They're sent to editorial where we cut them together as animatics, which are kind of like animated storyboards with temporary dialogue and temporary sound effects and temporary music. We use our own voices for the characters. I did a pretty mean Mr. Tumnus. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tumnus.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Tumnus.
I think my greatest fear on this film was day one of shooting.
Hey, Mac.
It had taken us a year and a lot of work to get to that point, and I knew from that point we had at least 18 months of intense work to go, and it just felt like such a huge mountain to climb. But I think probably the greatest day of the whole shoot was like day 2 of shooting, where we actually had footage and we could start cutting. To enjoy working with a director, there has to be a lot of trust. He's shooting all the stuff and he's leaving you alone with it for long periods. He has to look good when he comes back. The stamina factor that we were shooting for 130 odd days, which I think is quite exceptional. We were in New Zealand for 9 months, then back in Los Angeles for 4 weeks, then we're off to the Czech Republic for 4 weeks, 5 days in London doing voiceover stuff, back to LA for 4 weeks, and then to New Zealand. We were just constantly moving.
And cut.
Alright, so you've got 2 million feet of film, you sit down. With that quantity of footage, there really is only one thing that you're looking for the whole time, which is performance. The basic thing to do with any scene was always to put the best performance together first, using these key moments, try and tell the story within the scene.
He's the bait!
Cutting with real characters and virtual characters in the same scene does have its challenges. I'm mentioning fortunate because I'd come from a world where you didn't have any characters. I'd worked on the Shrek films with Andrew, where all the characters are in Andrew's mind until they're finished being animated. So it's actually, in some ways, it was a huge leap forward to have the 4 kids' performances around which we could build the performances of the CG characters. As each scene is shot, we would rough cut that, and we had a great help in the fact that we'd previs stuff, so we were able to rough cut with very crude representations of what we wanted the visual effects to be. We came back to Los Angeles and we had pretty much a rough cut of everything that was shot. I think editorially it's been quite inspiring how we've managed to keep quite a lot of the lyricism and the poetry of what Don and Andrew shot, and yet keep the thing moving along. I mean, there's always a tension between trying to create magic and wonder and yet keep what's basically a road movie moving. And I think think the final product we've managed to do that.
What do you think you're doing? Peter, quickly, the shelter! Now! Come on! Oh, wait,
come on! I recently found all these photographs of my father, because I never knew my father. And I had all these loaded up on my computer. My father was a pilot in the RAF in the Second World War and fought all through the Battle of Britain. And I've got this one particular photograph of him in his RAF uniform. And I just had been mentioning this to Andrew, and we'd been talking about details of the Blitz in London and stuff. It was a couple of days before they started shooting, and the prop mistress came by and she said, "Can I get a printout of the picture of your dad?" And that was the prop. That photograph of my father is the photograph that Edwin runs into the house to salvage. You know, in the opening bombing sequence. It's just amazing, really. You know. But then when we actually came to shoot the scene where the two boys are in the air raid shelter, and I can just remember hearing on the dailies, he's trying to, you know, gee them up into the emotion of the story, and he's just saying to Edmund, just imagine that's the only photograph you've ever had of your father. Just what would that feel like, you know? And I think, you know, there's quite a bit of that in Skander's performance there. This just devastated little boy who's just trying to get his photograph.
Why can't you got anyone but yourself? You're so selfish. You could have got us killed. Stop it.
I think my greatest satisfaction on the film was just the fact that you can sit back and forget that the actors are kids, and that at some point in the first act of the movie you just get completely absorbed in the story and you're completely absorbed in the characters. You don't for a moment question that the CG characters are CG characters.
I ain't gonna smell it if that's what you want.
When I sit and watch this movie, there's a point at which I'm just going, how did I get here? You know, I can barely remember the journey, and I can barely comprehend where I'm going. It's just so amazing.
Hi, I'm Harry Gregson Williams, and I'm the composer on The Chronicles of Narnia. At a very early age, I was packed off to boarding school, when I was about 6, actually. In Cambridge, to a very, very specialist music school. I could read music probably a bit better than I could read English at a certain stage in my life. And the sort of saturation and the joy of music, which came in a very disciplined environment, it just has never left me that sort of hunger and desire to be as good as I possibly could be. After I'd been through music school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I thought for one moment I was going to be an opera singer, but teaching music just leapt into my mind. I was interested in the sort of old adage, music might be a universal language, so I put myself in a very challenging situation, arriving in Alexandria in Egypt in a classroom, not speaking a word of Arabic. Film music to me was something I, like a lot of people, would have just heard when I went to the movies, and it didn't. I never realised that it could actually be a vocation, like something I would really embrace and want to do. Almost half of what is needed to be a film composer is nothing to do with composing music. Being able to understand what a director might want. Being able to deal with musicians and orchestras and what have you, and really tight deadlines. You know, one could be a really talented Schubert-type guy sitting in a wonderful courtyard at one's window waiting for the muse to hit. You're not going to get on very well in this line of work. hours and hours, days and days, months and months of preparing music, which I mock up on my sequencers and my samplers. You know, I spend a lot of time going over the film time and time again and sitting at the piano, trying this or trying that. And then when the moment's right, when I feel I'm onto something, I'll engage Andrew.
I've got my director here this morning. He's a good man. This is Andrew Adamson, director of Shrek, Shrek
2. And I'll sit him down and study his body language. When I play him some music, one presents as painfully sad, for instance. Hopefully he's going to feel that same emotion when I play it for him. But if he doesn't, then I have to make adjustments.
The last chord just came.
Move a bit later.
Yeah.
We had an extraordinary conversation the other day. It was a music meeting, but I was curious to know how is the first time Lucy goes into Narnia, there's a little snow falling, but nothing else, and there's a very important music cue. And Andrew said, I really want to make it feel like, you know that sound when there's not much sound? And I'm not sure I know what you're talking about there, Andrew. No, he said, you know that sound when, if there's a lot of snowfall and you enter a little clearing, perhaps, and there's just that feeling of emptiness there. So that was a great clue to me, musically. Because I had been actually thinking that I would open up musically. There's no dialogue there. Lucy's walking around, experiencing this place for the first time. But these conversations are invaluable, and they're not necessarily musically directed. Andrew and I had slight disagreements about where the music was going to land. When I had the orchestra play a really important moment in the film, Lucy and Tumnus first meet. That's a very delicate moment, really tricky to score. I rewrote that scene many times, and Andrew and I had a difference of opinion as to how it should play out. I was quite nervous about it, and I really threw myself into the performance of it with the orchestra as I conducted them, and they really just nailed it. They played it exactly how I would have had them do it, and I flew through to the control room, and Andrew made one of his fairly famous sort of inverted compliments, which is, I'm surprised how little I hate that. I'm like, great, Andrew, you love it. My personal journey through scoring Narnia was a rocky one, as all my journeys on movies are. And by rocky, I don't mean unpleasant. Just, you know, it's something. Scoring movies is something that never ceases to amaze me. The more I go on, the more I realize my job isn't to bang the audience over the head and say, you must feel happy at this moment. I think a certain manipulation is inevitable because, you know, we're making a movie here, and, you know, it is pretty much make-believe. We're suspending our imaginations for it. But having said that, there are, I hope, sophisticated and gentle ways of going about that.
I'm Mark Johnson, the producer of The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. There is a producer who once said that if a producer has done his job or her job right during pre-production, in other words, lining up the right people to make the movie, finding the right place to shoot it, finding the right cast to put in front of the cameras, then he or she has done their job until post-production, when you start to edit it and you start to figure out how to market it. And that means if everything's going smoothly, then the producer doesn't have that much to do. I don't entirely subscribe to that. I think, you know, the producer has so much to do, and everything from being a cheerleader to a supporter of the director to the person who interfaces with the studio. And I think that if I look at my role as a producer, and I really see it as the protector of the film really has to be the director's imagination and the director's vision. And you really have to protect that he or she is able to make the movie that he or she wants to make within the parameters, both physical and financial. One of the reasons I did this movie was to see what it was like to produce a movie on this scale. It was very hard for me not to be intimidated by what we were undertaking. You have to take it day to day and say, okay, what is it we're setting out to do today? Because if I looked at it in the totality and said, oh my gosh, how are we going to pull this off? I probably would have ended up in some sort of fetal position, muttering to myself. I've never done anything like this. Roger does all these big films all the time.
How are you?
Gander, I'm fine, thank you. What do you want to ask me?
How are you today?
As the movie starts to physically take place, there is the comfort and the relief that, oh, we can actually pull this off, or look at that witch's castle, that looks as good, if not better, than what I had in mind. It's always coupled with the attendant reaction, which is, oh my gosh, how are we going to pull this off? How are we going to be able to afford it? The best location to shoot the final battle was high atop a mountain in this most remote part of the South Island. And we had 6 or 7 helicopters ferrying crew members up into the mountains and dropping them off with their equipment. And we had erected a village, a huge tent for catering, a huge tent for the animals, a huge tent for all of the prosthetics and all of the extras to get made up in their various costumes. It was mammoth. I never doubted that we were going to be able to pull it off. I wasn't sure how we were going to pull it off sometimes. I'll give you a good example. The White Witch's sleigh, the first time we see her, is pulled by reindeer. Reindeer do not exist in New Zealand. New Zealand is very specific about what kind of animals are actually even allowed in the country. As much as New Zealand wanted to help us in so many ways on this film, they would not let us bring reindeer into the country. So we said, well, how do we do this, We said, well, what about if the sleigh is pulled by horses? And Andrew looked at us like, what, are you crazy? So you do go through a couple of nights where you say, how are we going to be able to give Andrew what he wants when we don't have reindeer? So we realized we were going to have to do them with computer-generated imagery. And I hate to tell you how much more money it cost to create these reindeer, but that's how we did it.
Let's roll, please, roll in!
We thought we had been in some pretty cold weather in New Zealand, and then we shot for 3 weeks in the Czech Republic just after Christmas, and we were in the middle of snow, and poor James McAvoy was there completely bare-chested in the middle of this real snow. It's one thing to be on a stage with fake snow and be able to deliver your lines. It's another thing to be able to have to walk in this freezing temperature. Nobody ever complained. They realized what they were doing and why they were doing it, and I think everybody loved the idea that physically they were just giving it their all. Andrew has an imagination that continually surprises me. Every time we'd set out to do a scene and I'd sort of have an idea of what it was going to be, and I loved my idea of what that scene could be. Andrew would shoot it and direct it in a way that was different from what I had imagined, in some cases radically different, and I hate to say it, that much better. When I saw Lucy and Mr. Tumnus in their first scene together at the lamppost, and I saw 2 actors so connecting, and I saw the charm and the heart and just the soul of this movie. And it was, for me, it was a real vision. And I just sort of quietly said to myself, we're going to be okay, this movie is going to be really special. I truly think I'm the luckiest man in America. This is what I wanted to do as a kid. I get to do it now. I get to be involved with some of the most creative, imaginative, resourceful people out there. It really is. It's the best gig in the world. And if somebody came to me and said, "I'm sorry, we've made a mistake, and we're going to have to pay you 1/16 of what you've been making," I would still do it because I can't find anything else that I would love as much to do.
The White Witch isn't human. She doesn't have a heart. She doesn't have any conscience or any sense of honor or social responsibility or love or compassion. Every creature in Narnia is terrified of the White Witch. And the real challenge with making the look was that she shouldn't look man-made, that she should look fantasy, that she should look like a creature rather than a lady with makeup on or a metal crown, and that she should look modern, which was the really interesting part. I was interested in thinking about my favorite sort of fantasy cinematic beauties, and I thought a lot about La Belle et la Bête. And I thought a lot about the magical witches in The Wizard of Oz, for example, the Good Witch. Because the important thing about the White Witch is that she has to be attractive in some way. I mean, she can become repellent at certain points, but Edmund's no fool. She has to actually touch him in some way and be somebody he wants to be around. The idea we worked on with the costume was that it would be like a sort of mood thermometer, that it would morph with her mood. It's not as if she changes dresses, but the dress itself changes shape and color according to how things are going for her.
We broke her character down into 7 changes. We start when we first see her. She has no idea that there's any threat to her world, and she comes across this human. She's in a beautiful state of ice. She's in her sleigh. She's in the snow. We move the second time to the dungeon. In the dungeon, her dress fills out into what we call the full Monty, and it changes into exactly the environment of her castle. And as the children enter and as her power starts to disappear, we start to see her whole silhouette melt and her colors get grayer, and she starts to lose. Her crown is about 50% now. And from there we go to the White Witch's camp. And now her dress is completely bottom heavy. It's gone into a deeper gray smoke color. And her crown is smaller and smaller. The next scene is Aslan's camp, where she comes in professed as the Queen of Narnia in all her glory, carried by her 4 Cyclops. And her dress shoots out again and she's in platinum. It's like her coronating herself again. From there we move to the execution, or the stone table, where she is in midnight blue with a black rooster on her shoulder, which is a bit ritualistic, which is what the whole scene is about.
And then she becomes a warrior and goes into battle. Tawny and Byzantine and brutal. And there's no hint of snow or femininity or softness. That Marie Antoinette beauty is gone.
1, 3, and 4.
Thank you, monsieur.
Tilda is a clean, gorgeous beauty. She is all strength from inside. So we just found this organic place we went where you couldn't tell where anything was from.
This fabric was created, which has this, it's almost like a cotton wool texture, out of which the top of my body can appear.
We made the fabric, we made the lace, we sewed it on the machine and burnt out the back of it and hand stitched it on. We made them all here in our workshop. What makes it otherworldly is just, you don't really know what it is. You can't really see. And sometimes you can look like, there were times when you felt like you could see right through her when she was in the snow, like a puff of dust or cloud.
I wanted everything that she wore to feel like it had come from the land somewhere. She, being a magical individual, a fantasy individual, would just take her hand and take a waterfall and just go make a dress out of a waterfall.
Something kind of fabulous about all these collars, because you end up with Aslan across the ass.
She goes into the battle wearing the scalp of her opponent, this lion's mane.
So she'd cut off Aslan's mane and made a fur collar out of it. She's a nasty witch.
That's Helen's favorite wine.
Welcome.
So I gave her a bottle of something.
And to the world of extreme drag. Just looking for something that was modern and that played away from the great cliche of a villainess that she should have black hair or red lips or red nails or black eyeliner. The idea that she would maybe have a clean face and look more Aryan than dark.
How long does this take each day?
About an hour and a half. So you have to get the hair as flat as possible underneath the wig so it fits, so it's a perfect fit.
And now we've kind of extended it into a bit of a punk range.
It's something that's actually quite simple, like they really pop. Carl his own hair, and then we spray with a really powerful hairspray. It takes 7 weeks to wash out.
That's how you get the integration?
Yeah. The base of the wig is just normal hair. It was built in Sydney. And then the front of it was dressed in skewers, in bamboo skewers, like for kebabs. 2,000 skewers. But we wanted to create the effect that it just sits by itself.
Yeah, this is just a horse, eh?
Tilda Swinton would never sacrifice costume for comfort.
The first time I walked onto a set, I was actually blind because I was wearing contact lenses that I couldn't see through. And then we changed to contact lens.
Oh, it's you!
I did wear some extremely unwieldy boots, which made it an interesting day every day, particularly when I had to walk down steps or go through small doorways.
She's an actor who comes from performance art, so I think she was equally as willing to embrace the limitations of the stature of the White Witch, and some of those things actually helped her find a character.
Slipping off the sledge.
The look of the witch was 85% of my work. So these are just a few elements that we were playing with, and it was great fun to play with them.
Aslan is the original highest king of Narnia. He represents the ultimate of all of the creatures and was actually the one responsible for creating the world of Narnia. He's an interesting character because in some ways he's all-powerful and all-knowing, but at his heart he still has a vulnerability.
Thank you.
I think C.S. Lewis used the character of a lion for Aslan because he represents something that's both fearsome and awesome. You're attracted to and at the same time you're afraid of. And that's who he is as this High King. He's somebody that the children immediately warm to, but he's somebody that you know any minute could turn around and just bite your head off.
The first time I met Andrew about the project, the one thing he said to me, which he continues to say today, is that it was incredibly important for him that we not be able to tell the difference between a computer-generated animal and a live-action animal.
Rise.
I think they're going to look at Aslan the lion and go, how did they do that?
This is the stunt Aslan. It needs to be steamed flat just to get the hair laying really nice and give that lion sheen to it.
Aslan is being done, I'd say 99.9% digitally. But Andrew asked us to build 3 versions. We have 3 different Aslans we're going to take a look at. Yep. All right. This Aslan is our lying on the table Aslan. Aslan on the stone table. And originally that was going to be digital, but we built this amazing puppet, and I had an amazing Aslan team headed by Jeff Himmel. It's a magnificent piece of work, and Andrew just fell in love with it, and we shot the entire sequence. That's the 0.1% that will be all puppet. So radio-controlled head, and it breathed and did all this stuff. We built a full-size Aslan for stand-in work. The digital guys had the spatial reference and color and all the information they needed to have, and then we would remove that. And then we had a running version that Georgie and Anna rode on a green screen. And originally what they had contracted us to build was basically a blue form. And I went, I don't want to build that. I want to build an Aslan. So we went ahead and we built this hero mechanical Aslan puppet. When the girls were on set, when we were shooting it, I really wanted them not to think it was a puppet. And we left it on, turned on all the time, and it was always breathing and always moving and looking around. And I wanted them to believe that these were guys that really existed in this world, and in hopes that that would help with their performances and just make it all be real and come to life.
Aslan is probably the single most remarkable achievement in CG character animation. Not only for the level of technology that goes into creating the sky, he's got to deliver a wide range of emotions equal to any actor, I believe. And when you see it, you've got to believe it and feel it and not ever think that it's a CG character.
Aslan's been 2 years in the making, and it is a great achievement, there's no doubt.
Aslan is entirely hand animated. Early on, there was discussions about whether we would try and motion capture a lion. In the end, it was determined that to get the performance we needed, we probably wouldn't be able to get those motions out of a lion, even a trained lion.
We work in Voodoo, which is our proprietary animation system, and it allows us to do a lot of stuff like fur, simulation, crowd, regular animation, and lighting.
First, what will happen is we'll get concept art. So Aslan, when we first got him, we built a digital model based off of a maquette that we received.
By focusing on a certain type of lion at a certain age, we were able to kind of dial in the look of him very consistently, so that we always had a reference to kind of go back to and say, well, this is actually how it looks.
One of the challenges with a character like this, especially with any furred character, you want to get the detail of the skin to read through the fur. All this wrinkling here that you see down in the skin, how much that translates through the fur once you put that on top of it. Without that, it's really hard for the animators to convey any emotion. He has a full muscle system underneath his skin. The way we did most of it was through shape-driven animations. We broke certain poses and certain expressions down based on different muscle groups. You would have one in this area, one in this area, one in this area, on back around the mouth, and those would all combine to give you these poses. It also mimics a real lion's muscle system, so that as he moves the corner of his mouth, you can see this tension all the way up through the temple in his head. So you see everything move, and that's all just from a very subtle movement on his lip. And that adds a lot of liveliness to the face. Most facial animation is in the subtle movement of the character.
I shall talk with you alone.
His body is done through a combination of both muscles, traditional deformations, and shapes. So this is actually a layering approach where you just continually add levels of detail on top of levels of detail until you get the final fidelity that you're looking for. So at the base level of the character, what you're going to have is a bone structure to get their blocking out and get their overall motion out. This shows the underlying muscles that are going to drive the skin. An animator doesn't think about these muscles. These muscles are just along for the ride. Once this is signed off on and they have the basic motion they want, they can go up to a higher resolution. This resolution actually is driven by the muscles. He's got realistic triceps, biceps. This is usually where the animator's work will stop, once they've gotten it up to this level, and it goes down to the next stage in the pipeline, which is called technical animation. Technical animation is responsible for things like dynamics, hair work, cloth work. So their job at that point is to come in and make that hair alive.
Aslan has 5.2 million hairs on its body right now, and it takes about 10 hours to render a frame.
Welcome, Peter. Welcome, Susan and Lucy.
We had a bunch of pictures, just photographic reference of a lion. I wasn't able to go to the gentle jungle and saw the real lions. They were nice enough to send me a little tuft of hair, which is cool, and my little inspiration. You can see the texture quality of it. Their hair is almost like bristles, you know, almost like a paintbrush. It's not soft and cozy, it's pretty rough.
We all know what hair looks like. We've all seen it all of our lives, and we know when it's good, we know when it's real. And making this come to life on a lion, down to the whiskers, even the whiskers on this lion have to be just the right thickness, just the right length, just the right coarseness.
He not only has incredible fur that you have to deal with, he's got this big mane that moves, not only when he walks, but when the wind blows.
It's one thing to just kind of have a nice, beautiful mane where it looks like he's gone through and, you know, the wind's blown through it and stuff like that, but we didn't want it to be too perfect. And we took all the different clumping parameters from a real lion and tried to just kind of keep it true to that, keep it true to the chaos that was in the fur.
In the past, it's taken hours and hours to render one single frame. Still takes us hours and hours, but not as many.
I don't think we could have made him using the techniques that we had previously. So it's amazing that we have this in-house programming team with the rendering software and the Voodoo software, and it basically allowed us to get this done.
So I think we've come in the technology that lets us believe that this is real.
That's just to make it look real. The real challenge is the acting. If you don't care about Aslan, if you don't care that he's gonna go sacrifice himself and die, the scene has no impact, and the movie doesn't work. That's an incredible challenge for visual effects.
You got me a little teary. Just think about Aslan dying for a moment.
His sorrow, his fright, you know, as he's about to die, and maybe his internal turmoil. All of these things have to be conveyed in looks and eye expressions and facial movements.
If we don't do our job well in visual effects, you don't have that emotion. You don't think about that character. And our challenge has been to really have the audience wrapped into that moment.
So you get sort of dense up here, less dense down here, and a bit denser as it starts to join again. A fawn with an umbrella by a lamppost in the snow is the image that C.S. Lewis held with him since he was 16 that started this whole story.
If any character is really well described in the book, it's probably Tumnus. And it was my most anxiety-ridden character I had to create for this film.
Mr. Tumnus was a very difficult character to find. When James came to audition, initially I almost would have gone past him because he was so young and good-looking, and I'd never really imagined Tumnus that way. And my assistant Alina actually was the one who said, go back and look at him again. On top of that, we were incredibly lucky that he and Georgie just connected, and there was just a chemistry and a magic between the two of them that just comes through.
If you don't mind my asking, what are you?
Well, I'm a fawn.
A fawn is a half man, half deer/goat character.
How much does the animal infringe on the man, and how much does the man infringe on the animal? Became a big thing, because ultimately you don't want it to be the animal infringing on the man. You want it to be the being. Do you know what I mean? The singular, not the sandwiching of two. Weighing in.
Wearing red and... Mr. Tumnus wears a red scarf. That is it. And if you think that was easy, just look at those 8 red scarves we went through before we finally knitted up the perfect Mr. Tumnus scarf.
You see?
We had done many, many tests, and Andrew had liked certain things and didn't like certain things.
He could have written these characters as just humans if they were meant to be just boring and normal, so we want it to be interesting, but not to overpower the character as well.
How much of his real nose is there?
It's just a tip piece.
Just the tip or tip, right?
Yeah, that's where the piece is right there.
Right.
I didn't even think about a nose when I was being cast for the part. I didn't think about any kind of snout or anything. Oh no, I'm going to have a big silly nose on every day.
It took a couple days to figure out what was the best nose to use, and we kept modifying it. I kept calling Greg here in K&D going, I need a new nose sculpted, quick, pronto, sculpt it today, mold it, send me the molds, da da da.
The one that we started off with was quite large and was very, beast-like. And as we progressed, we discovered that subtler was the way to go.
We finally came to the most simplistic. Let's utilize the actor's face. The hair work is one thing, the ears are one thing, because that's very much Tumnus. The horns are one thing. But really, as far as prosthetics go, let's just worry about the tip of the nose. something gradual like this, Andrew?
Yeah, I wouldn't put any more on this line now.
All right,
It's good.
The hair became an issue of like just how far it comes up. What looks good and what looks real weren't always the same thing.
The other thing might be how it is to start with a slightly lighter hair.
Yeah, almost blonde.
Yes.
Hair color was a huge thing. We had picked a chestnut. Once we got to set and started filming, Don McAlpine, who's the cinematographer on the film, shooting things very contrasty, so the color we had chose actually didn't work. We ended up having to go back and really throw highlights into all the hair pieces and eventually change all the hair color to his body hair being blonde. And it still registers kind of dark on film.
Usually it takes 3.5 to 4 hours. So it's a slog, and we have to, we get early starts.
We had a lot of body hair work to do. We'd lay hair up and down James' arm and up his back.
Well, I'd just get covered in glue all down my back, up here, around there, and then hair gets stuck on individually. Maybe 15 pieces of hair, which is nothing. It's tiny,
So we would hand lay hair, tons and tons of hair.
And then they'll do it again, and then again, and then again, and it covers me all here, and it takes forever.
Then once that was all laid, we would style it with these hot curling irons, make it feel very organic and very natural and have curl to it. And then he would stand up. It was time for him to take his sweatpants off because our calls were early, like 3:30 in the morning, so it was freezing. He'd take his sweatpants off and we'd make him put on little green screen pants for the digital guys.
As I understand it, the process of green screen and how they're going to use my goat legs is they get eye of toad, tongue of newt, and it's all magical. It's not computers at all.
So he's in makeup from his waist up, so we had to add the goat legs.
We went down the road of using motion capture, and we decided not just to do motion capture in a stage, but we decided to do it on set. Not just on set, but we would do it outside.
We set up cameras to gather his data. We actually did it in the Czech Republic, running around in the snow.
If you want to have the human portion filmed on set, you've got to have the upper body move in a way that makes sense. That when we put the goat legs in, it all kind of works together. At the end of the day, the simple thing worked out that walking on your tiptoes forces your body to move in a way that is much the same way as the kind of reverse leg that you see on a goat.
I have to wear the most hideous green screen pants you've ever seen in your life. Grotty, it's like lycra, dirty nonsense.
He had little tracking marks all over his legs that they would then use for tracking to digitally composite CGI font legs over his own legs.
The CG element is tracked so that we know where his hips are. The legs and the hips are attached to the body, and then we go in and we lay in the foot placement underneath. There's a lot of animation work that goes into getting those feet placed and really feeling the weight and the compression. You need to feel that in the heel, and you need to feel it in all over the leg.
As a human, sometimes he would daintily put his foot down in it, but we needed more of a feeling of a heavy hoof. And so the first thing we would do was lock down the feet. And then the real trick is as it comes down and it makes contact, that's when you really want to see the ankle compress. And that really sells the weight of it.
Once we're happy with the performance, then there's a whole nother slew of technical people that have to go in and then make sure the fur's working, or that when they step on grass, the grass moves, or if they're moving in the snow, you get footprints and snow gets kicked off.
Different artists work on the color of the hair, whether the hair is more transparent or less transparent, thicker or denser. Also, we add a little bit of snow to Mr. Tumnus's fur, and that helps us integrate his legs and feet into the snowy plate as well.
Each one of these shots has, hundreds of people that were involved in its creation.
We shoot for 14 hours, and then we bring poor James back into the trailer. We clean it all off. It all gets on the floor, sweep it up, throw it away. None of it is salvageable. And we clean James off. Off he goes, and we'll see him again in 8 hours and do it again.
Let the fun times roll.
Maugrim and Varden, who are key villains, the White Witch's henchmen, sort of her version of the Gestapo.
We're looking for some humans. The secret police. Our challenge with that is that they have to be completely real, and on set we had 8 wolves. We actually had a wolf that was Mogram.
The wolves were interesting because originally we were hoping to get a lot of the wolf action in camera. We'd hired and trained a number of wolf hybrids.
My name is Sled Reynolds. What I do is I'm an animal trainer, obviously. You have to understand Andrew Adamson isn't a wolf trainer. So essentially what you have to do is explain to him what you think that the wolves can do and what they can't do. What we want is to put something here so he has to go closer to the window.
Action.
Rugby, come on, Rose.
Throw a piece of meat right at the bottom of the window.
All right, go on. Feet up. Feet up. Good. Stay.
All right, Bob. Huh? Good. Stay.
We have 2 purebreds in here, but most of them are hybrids. Because of the nature of this movie where Mogram is very stoic,
take them.
A purebred wolf probably wouldn't work, so they're probably 90% wolf. And they're a little quieter than a purebred, and especially being with the kids, it would be very, very dangerous to do, wouldn't it, Brooke? It would be very dangerous to do with a real wolf. He's a good boy, huh? He is a good boy, huh?
So after you go through all this trouble, we finally get them on set, and we watch them working, and they look like happy little dogs. Their tails are wagging, and it's like, these are supposed to be our ferocious, evil nemesis for the kids. There's this one scene where we're sort of spiraling down to the beaver house from above, and the wolves are coming around and looking at it, and one of the wolves did something really silly.
This wolf here, that's Mogram, he's supposed to be going up to the window and being vicious and mean, but he loses interest, turns around, and goes the other way. So we basically stripped him out completely and animated a CG dog in his place. Another area of concern was the tails. They don't look as mean as they could with those big swinging tails, so we actually went through and we painted out the tail on this wolf and other wolves that looked like their tails were just swinging too happily.
In the end, we did end up using, a number of shots with the wolves, and the way we did it was very clever of Andrew. He found a scene where most of the action would be okay, but it kind of didn't have a point to it. So we would add 1 or 2 CG wolves to the shot with the other wolves.
Here's an example of a shot where 2 characters walk up to the edge of the steps and stand there. It was another example of where the dogs just didn't look menacing enough. And to fix that, we kept those 2 dogs, but we inserted 1 more dog in the middle who did look vicious. And just by inserting that 1 dog, it changed the whole tone of the shot.
We based our CG characters on these real guys.
We had the dogs in here and we just took measurements of all these different features, how long the hair was in different areas of the body. The eyes are the mirror to the soul, and if you don't get that right, then you're missing the mark completely. We went to great lengths to make sure we made the eyes look as believable as possible, including getting all the anatomy right, building the eye physiologically correct for a canine eye. The anatomical structure of the body was also replicated as best we could to actually get the kinds of deformations that we needed in the body. We want to make sure that when the wolf moves, we really see the musculature under the skin.
It's very important to get them right. The fur has to look good, and the movement of the characters has to look believable.
Don't patronize me.
When we were designing centaurs, we wanted to see what had already been done and then go the reverse.
Centaurs through mythology are very egotistical, proud.
They were arrogant, but
Yes.
in this world they're noble.
Yes.
They're the saviors.
Are you with me? To the death.
So in designing the centaur makeups, we wanted to find something that still kept the elegance, kept horse-like qualities, but also made them feel better than the rest.
They should be gorgeous.
So, here I am.
Still have to look kind of pretty. Kind of.
I love it. Aureus is the head of the army. He's a good guy, and he's Aslan's right-hand man.
Peace, Aureus.
Andrew had a vision. He took me into his office and he showed me a little figure of what the centaur would look like. And then we went through to the animation room and he showed me the animated version of the battle. And I sort of started to get a feel for what the character was all about. Andrew's the kind of guy that will just let you play your character. I've sort of played a very stoic He's a quiet character, doesn't have a lot of lines. Let's say that the words that he says, when he says them, that you listen. Numbers do not win a battle.
We can have up to 50 centaurs on any day.
Tremendous amount of work for the centaurs because we had male centaurs and female centaurs.
I've met 5.
Yeah, I got to know some of the other guys' centaurs. Not so much female centaurs. But I think they're a little standoffish, you know?
Haha, yeah, I haven't heard that before.
Swords! 4, 5.
It's pretty intensive.
Yeah, it's pretty scary, actually.
Go through the whole thing again. So we'll go back to first position. Your right hand, right up to the hilt of the sword. Slide it in. Right, we have to work together. 1, 2. Swords. All right, so a little bit more speed, a little bit more precision.
Some of those guys are so tall. 6'6" around, give or take.
Squad 1.
Broad shoulders. Broad shoulders.
Squad 5. Now that's not looking too bad everywhere.
It's quite a look, though.
Then we made 50 horse rear ends, which of course are the bane of my existence. And they spent, a good 4 months making horse rear ends that had to be built with these trolleys and rigs and harnesses and all this crazy stuff.
And there'd be a whole speed rail mount that went down to a set of wheels so they could kind of walk around.
Ultimately, the problem with creating a centaur is that a human is the wrong height. We had to make the humans about 14 to 16 inches taller, depending on the height of the actor. So we actually ended up constructing some 30 or 40 different little platforms that we could then raise the actors up. Well, that just gets them to the right height. Now you have to worry about their motion, because their movement had to be natural to a horse. So the shape of an actor would be something more like this, with his body sort of attaching to where the neck portion of a horse would be, and then the legs would then come down here. So basically everything below the waist was useless for us. So there was no sense in this case of actually motion capturing these guys, because we weren't ever going to use any of their real motion to drive the legs of the horse part of their bodies. We only needed the top part for their, their facial expressions in their bodies. We had to make sure their movements they did would work in concert with a huge horse butt that would be attached to them, because especially our centaurs, a lot of them were regal, honor guard, military type creatures, so their movements were very precise.
The armor that we wear is pretty neat.
Solid steel, full chain, formidable opponent even for someone as tough as the Minotaurs. Back armor sitting out from the back slightly, and this will accommodate for the curve of the horseback coming into here. The chain will sit further out at an angle here, so you're getting this beautiful transition into the horse body. Nice flexibility through the arms, these heavy pauldrons giving really good flexibility through here. And what we've got is an opportunity for a mounted combatant to actually wield a two-handed sword. He can swing this in a huge lateral arch. That's the sword that you'll carry.
So that coming out.
Awesome.
Oh, that's beautiful.
With that sword, he's probably got a reach of 6 feet, which makes him terrifying.
So we're casting components up for the centaurs at the moment, a great deal of them. I think there's about 38 components per character.
And they're so detailed, and there's so much to them, like bits and pieces.
Now, of course, I want to see Patrick draw both his swords, but it's going to be dangerous. Yeah, you'll only have to do that at a full gallop while charging the white witch and jumping over polar bears. It will be fine.
They're a big, strong, powerful character. Massive.
Minotaur. That sounds pretty simple,
Doesn't get much harder than this.
We spent months and months and months just building Minotaurs.
I remember of the process of design through the Minotaurs, we're all thinking,
Man, it's going to take some pretty powerful movie magic for the good guys to win this fight, because it was looking pretty one-sided then.
We have the full bodysuit that he slides into.
Just like you do your pants in the morning.
Legs, arms. Zip him up the back.
I zipped it already.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Being a trained professional, I know how to do these things.
Then he puts on his feet, which are these big extension boots.
They're the new swoosh.
Are they comfortable? Man, do they look comfortable? I can shoot hoops in these, buddy. These are hoop hoops.
Then we have hands, gloves that fit on, and then we put on all the armor.
One of the other things that you see in fantasy films a lot is the fallback on making the baddies look tattered and undisciplined. What we did with the Minotaurs, who are the bulk of the Queen's army, is there is no finer armor in the film. All they do is spend time on their weapons and armor. So it is beautiful, it is functional, and it is extreme.
Heads on. And the last thing we do on set is put the head on. It's this big, heavy mechanical head that just fits on, straps in the back. The actor, what little he can see, sees out of the mouth. Facially, it has side-to-side jaw movement, full lips, so it could do dialogue. Ears, eye rotation, blinks, brows, a little cheek movement. Did everything. All the guys that played Minotaurs were completely blind in the mechanical heads because the way they were designed. We just didn't have a space for any of these poor guys to see.
If ever in a doubt that you don't know where you are, just stop. Okay? That way you don't hit anything.
So prior to the takes,
2, 1, go!
We would go ahead and have them walk through the sequence without their heads on, then walk through the sequence with their eyes closed. Then I'd put the heads on, have them walk through it another time, and then we would shoot.
Action!
First, a lot of people were like, these guys are going to get killed. I'm like, they're not going to get killed. They're going to be fine.
Good, Shane, good.
My first day on set, I found it really hard.
Right chain, ready, and stop.
I don't think they kind of grasp onto the fact that I couldn't see nothing. Yeah, absolutely nothing.
Was that close?
No, that was good. Yeah.
And then to add insult to injury, we turn on the radio, and all they hear is all the little servos zipping around like bees in their head. And, you know, Andrew's going, have him go more to the left. And I'm like, Shane, to the left, and run back out, you know.
We go to do the scene, and Andrew goes, oh, actually, Shane, can you look to the camera? I was just like, well, where is the camera?
Okay, have him go to the right. Run out there. Shane, to the right, to the right.
You tell people you're 100% blind, I can't see anything. And, you know, they don't really believe you until you walk into something. You know, and I've walked into people, into trees, you know.
I actually like him the most as far as the bad guys go. I mean, many days I just stood there looking at all the Minotaurs going, this is just so cool.
The ankle slicers came to be when Andrew was designing all of the characters in the White Witch's army, and all of those characters are large. There's Minotaurs that are 6.5 feet tall, huge Cyclops and giants, and as a juxtaposition of that, the ankle slicer came into being.
As a creature supervisor on Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, one of my jobs was to help oversee the modeling, the rigging, the texture painting, and the pre-lighting for the ankle slicer. He's the one that most resembles the original design that we received from the client.
As far as the character is concerned, we started with a movement. In this particular case, we used an Austrian acrobat. He was very, very talented, extremely impressive. Unfortunately for the particular character, we ended up having to move away from the original Saw God once we got into the structure of the character.
Two of the challenges that we had with the ankle slicer was trying to figure out how to make his jawbone work and how to make his eye socket work. There was a request to make the eye socket actually move the way a frog's would. This is a lot of people's favorite character. He's a fun little character with a great design.
It's a small little character. They just nip at your ankles. They're vicious. They kind of look like a featherless chicken. And we knew that they were going to have an important role in the battle.
These guys are actually responsible for taking the rhino down. As he runs by camera, they actually cut out his ankles as he goes by. A lot of people here, when we just talk about the ankle slicer, they actually cringe at the name. Something that's running around cutting at your Achilles heels, and that's just an intimidating thought. It just kind of reminds me of a little chicken running around on steroids.
Ginnerbrick, kind of jack of all trades with a very long beard and a fine woolen hat, which she's used to taking off his head and using to wipe mess up with. One wonders if he doesn't also give her foot massages and maybe fill her hot water bottles.
You know, I think the inspiration for the character, there was a lot of artwork that was created by Weta, but there was one illustration I think Alan Lee had done that I really pulled from. And then when Kieran was cast, we just fashioned something simple that would work with Kieran's face. We didn't want to cover his face too much, so it just became a nose piece and a brow, what we call a T-piece, as it runs here and here. And then once we got it on, we tried to look at different hairstyles and beard styles, and Andrew always wanted to have this really long beard, a beard that had been growing for hundreds of years. We tried Ginnerbrick with a mustache, and Kieran felt that it took away from a lot, and we took the mustache off and just showed Andrew, and he's like, oh, I like it without the mustache. The costume is really fantastic, and it's exactly the way this character should be.
I'm the shortest stuntman currently working in the world in Guinness World Record.
And action!
I will be doing fights that will come under stunts. I will do anything in stunts, from high falls.
All right, Kieran?
Yeah, I'm okay. I've done weapon training, cracking the whip.
And action!
What makes a makeup successful is two things. The makeup artist's job, but the other half is the actor's job. And we're lucky that Kieran is playing this character because he completely brings it to life.
It's a beaver. Now, I'd never seen a beaver before, and I didn't even know what beavers look like.
The beavers are critical to the story. They're the first character that the kids come across.
We have these CGI beavers.
That's fully computer generated. Psst. We tried everything we possibly could to bring out emotion in Anna or Georgie or Skandar. We tried everything possible, from putting a little stuffed animal on the end of a stick to Andrew himself, in some instances, actually crouched down and acted like a beaver to help the whole scene evolve in some of the more intimate moments in the beaver's house.
Who's Aslan?
Who's Aslan? Cheeky little blighter.
So one moment you have Andrew, the director, and his assistant Alina reading lines, and the next moment you have stuffed animals, and the next moment you have model beavers.
It was quite weird to see a toy balancing on the end of a stick instead of a beaver.
Lucy Pevensey.
You had to just get an image of a beaver in your mind. Yes.
And action.
Isn't that anything we can do to help Tumnus?
Well, they'll have taken him to the witch's house, and you know what they say about that.
Andrew knew from the beginning that he was going to have to sit there and actually act with the kids.
And it's all happening because of you.
You're blaming us?
No.
No, dear, I'm not blaming.
And that way he could get the performances he wanted out of them by just changing his performance.
It's all happening because of you.
You're blaming us? Oh, no.
He knew he could slightly get different reactions and different performances from all the other kids, and it would ground them into the scene. It would give them someone to act with and act to.
And do you think we're the ones?
Once more on that line, let's see the realization of, oh my gosh, she's talking about us.
And do you think we're the ones? Andrew knows what he wants, you know? And it's like, if you're almost there, and the scene is so close to being right, that Andrew will just give it this little bit from the side, a little bit of pull, bit of push. And do you think we're the ones?
Well, you better be, because Aslan's already fitted out your army.
But we really have to go.
Oh no, it's my line, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't just leave. And cut. Good.
When the beavers come on for the first time on the screen, it's a wonderful moment for us, especially for me in visual effects, because our endeavor was to completely fool the audience, that this is a real beaver who's walking up to the kids.
Here, boy.
And then he stands up for the first time and talks.
I ain't gonna smell it if that's what you want.
Oh. Sorry.
When he talks, it's then that you realize that he's very real. First and foremost, these are real animals.
Told you he was real.
He's a beaver. He shouldn't be saying anything.
You're blooming joking. Want another one? You're blooming joking. What? Now, was that a little bit hard on them, or was that all right? Right, what are we on to? Still plenty to do. Ain't quite finished yet. It'll look the business when it is done. Aye, shepherd's pie. I was a bit fast at the end there.
Yeah, we have Ray Winstone, who plays Mr. Beaver, who I just really wanted to be this very down-to-earth, sort of, you know, industrial, kind of straightforward kind of guy, which Ray pulls off so wonderfully.
I've been working at it, kid.
Look at my fur. You couldn't give me 10 minutes warning.
I would have given you a week if I thought it would have helped.
Okay.
Working with Andrew is like working with quite a naughty child.
I have Dawn French playing Mrs. Beaver. Again, there were never any questions about who these people were going to be. I just knew straight off that I wanted these guys.
Oh, you're so welcome, Andrew.
Hurry, Mother! They're after us!
Oh, right then. Oh, no. Okay.
Freezing. What? We're inventing as we're going along. Yeah, terrific. I love it.
We actually videotape the actors at the moment in the recording studio when they're doing their voiceover.
You got quite a wiggle there yourself, darling.
The way that someone delivers the line of dialogue and just who they are as a voice is very much wrapped into their facial emotion and their body language, and we want to capture all of that.
As an additional tool in that direction, we've developed a performance video capture studio. And essentially what it is we will perform our shot in front of the video camera and then bring that shot into our scene and help us along in getting towards that little nuance that the director's after in a performance.
And then I'll work with the animators and get their head around it, and they go off and we do several rounds of animation before we get something that actually works cohesively as an entire piece, as a sort of a primary animation pass.
Smart girl. Don't listen to him! Kill him! Kill him! Kill him now! Narnia needs you! Get him while you still have a chance! It's an experience that you see grow with you. You know, from the first sketches and you mouthing it off, and then you see the character that you're creating become you, but look like a beaver. It's a really weird thing.
I'd say Mr. and Mrs. Beaver are the favorite. They're the most dynamic, most character-driven characters in the movie.
Yeah, they're pretty cool characters. I think they're probably my favorite ones.
You're worse than Beaver on Bath Day.
Worst day of the year.
The Saders were an accident. You know?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Originally, it was like, okay, they're all digital, and then I think a month into the shoot, they went, you know what, we need to make them practical. So we took those designs, and I like to say we enhanced them. We tried new things. There's a scene, and there it goes. Look at that, movie magic. Everything was retrofitted. There was nothing made specifically for anybody.
It was crazy when we got there and we were trying to fit the suits to people we'd never met before, and you know, trying to put short people in tall suits and tall people in short suits.
Which was really, really scary.
Nice and comfy and cozy. Yes, I like tight things. That's probably why I can wear prosthetics.
Like, if you're claustrophobic, forget it. If you even start to think like, oh my God, I'm trapped, you're history. Physically, what your requirements are for any sort of suit or makeup is one, tolerance, extreme tolerance to everything. So, you know, they're in these full makeups, they're glued into them all day long. They have dentures, they have contact lenses that get put in their eyes. How do they feel?
Okay. Wow. That does look very much like an animal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Go forward on your knees.
People poking at you.
Lean forward a little bit.
People moving you around like you're a piece of furniture.
Put your head forward, Stephen.
Look, you're in the charge position.
You just have to be a generally, you know, pretty cool dude that has a very long fuse.
But I can be mad too.
Great bunch of guys, never complain.
My hair is all in a mess.
Very comfortable to move it.
Is it?
It's not restricting
Good. Yeah. Good job, good job, good job. High five, high five, high five, high five. Basically, it's a hand-tied suit. I mean, if you get in there, you can see each hair's tied in individually into spandex. It's been painted. And it's got this,
It's great.
You can really stretch it out.
Oh,
Scary hands, and he'll have an appliance on his face of horns and this little vacuum form shell that glues down on top that holds the horns on, so we can take them off and on Velcro. Yeah, very nice.
Okay, go for it there, Big Dan.
If it wasn't fun, I wouldn't want to do it. You're good, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, this is Howard. It could go there. Yeah.
It's kind of like a light.
Can I buzz you back? I wanted everybody to be enjoying the experience as much as I was enjoying the experience.
That's right. It makes it fun for all.
All right, well, here we are. This is, we're going to be doing a goblin test today. We have a show and tell for Andrew at lunchtime. This is Ian, who's playing one of our goblins. There's two of these goblins. And this is Tammy Lane, who's going to be doing the makeup today. It's a full head, cowl piece, and chin and face, and then he gets into this crazy suit. That's right. Go ahead and close your eye. It's going to feel like there's something in your eye because there's something in your eye. When you feel comfortable.
Oh, scary.
Cool. Huh? Oh, you're very
spooky.
Put your cowl on. Just grab it in the front. Do something.
Cough. The goblins, you know, story, we kind of figured that they kind of look reptilian. So we figured there's some sort of swamp dwellers. You know, they're fairly disgusting, you know, almost alien-esque, you know, H.R. Giger, alien-esque.
We've had them for an hour and a half, and we've asked for 3 to 4, and they're already asking us for an ETA. They have no idea. This is just basing out the edges so we can blend the paint jobs together. I don't think you'll be a 2-hour makeup. I think you'll be a 3-hour makeup.
These have only been in 7 other people's mouths.
I've never been a goblin before. It's my first time as a goblin.
The male ones, I don't think really ultimately served much of a purpose on the battlefield. The female ones were very stealthy. I remember shooting footage of the female ones attacking fawns and really tearing them apart.
Goblin's favorite food, chocolate chip cookies.
It'll be the same skull.
How to build a creature in 6 hours.
It's nice and reassuring to see that the makeups are looking very good. When you do a makeup and you do it on the first day and you're happy with it, you never ever want to do it again. And if there was a way we could shoot each creature's, all the stuff they need to do in one day, it would be the greatest thing in the world. But after a while you start getting you get familiar with the makeup. It's like a relationship. At first you feel all warm and fuzzy and you're happy and you're in love. And then, you know, you start finding things that are annoying to you. And then eventually you just hate it and you just want that person out of your life. Throw their stuff out the door, never see him again. That's kind of how we feel about makeup.
Up, spirits are high.
Do you need me to cry for this, Andrew?
No, just be sad.
Action!
Think you're a king. Now you're gonna die by a frog.
To see their reaction. That's funny. professional direction.
Lucy.
Hey! Hey! Open the thing up, I'm locked in!
Can you ask me the question again?
I'd like to wine you here, dine you there. I thought we'd build a jacuzzi over here.
Andrew, it just got funny.
Sorry.
Will you just think about this for a minute?
What would that be? That piece of direction?
I'm very intimidated right now.
Here I come. I am Aslan. Fear me.
I shall restrain myself.
Matilda's powerful and Skander loves her. Action.
Shut up! You think you're dad? Sorry.
Check the gate. Watch yourself. Check the gate. Show me what you got.
Check the gate.
Look, thank you for your hospitality, but we really have to go.
Oh no, it's my line, isn't it?
Yep.
You can't just leave. Good.
Check the gate.
Check the gate.
Check the gate.
Sorry, I've got your name.
Mrs. McCready.
Mrs. McCready.
Okay.
Well, you will know, you shall know how better hereafter.
Slipping off the sled.
So I'm not a dwarf. That's doing the light.
That wasn't very good. Ow. Ow.
Even the director has to pay up sometimes.
This is ridiculous.
You! Doesn't bring lunch!
Don't worry. There's always another take. Ooh, you look so good. Sorry, she looks like the girl from The Exorcist.
By the way, we've cut